Good evening. Good evening. I'd like to call this work session of the Forest Hills Local School Board meeting. This meeting of April 28, 2014. It's 5:30 p.m. Mr. Pepper, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Bissinger.
Here.
Dr. Heiss.
Here.
Mr. Hamilgarn.
Here.
Mr. Smith. Mr. Fruman.
Here. You join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. If you all will please take note of the safety exits. They're all along the back of the room there, one on the side over here. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepper?
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes.
Mr. Hamilgarn.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes. Well, thank you all for coming to this evening's work session. We have a very full agenda both for the 5:30 work session and for our regular meeting that starts at 7 o'clock, which means we've got a lot to do in an hour and a half here. I know some of these faces in the audience here are people that have done the prior work sessions. Welcome back. For those of you that are here for the first time, thank you so much for coming. We've received quite a few emails and other communications since our last work session. I very much appreciate those. I have tried very hard to respond to those emails. I know there's a couple I've gotten the last couple days I haven't responded to yet. I'll do so. As I think everyone in this room is aware, the purpose of these work sessions are to address our aging and decaying facilities. What we want to do, of course, is maintain the high quality of education that you've all come to expect and deserve for your children, and do something about the aging facilities. The board is determined to do something and to develop a plan. That's the intent. And the board is doing it a little bit different this time. We're acting as our own facilities committee, holding these meetings in public, having publicly noticed them, and giving you all the opportunity to attend so you can see how the process is working. We've had a number of work sessions thus far. Again, some of you have been here and some of you not. And a good number of those work sessions, the primary discussion has been the high schools, and I know that's probably what's bringing most of you out to see us tonight. And again, we appreciate that. While we've discussed the high schools quite a bit in our prior work sessions, and I know that during the public commentary session we'll be hearing from a lot of you on that subject, tonight the board's intent is to primarily focus on the elementary schools and a little bit on the middle school. And we're going to have a presentation from Dr. Jackson and our consulting architect, Mr. Joe Kunkel. So you'll have an opportunity to see that, and then we'll move into the public commentary section. The hope is that we can do all that, the elementary presentation and the board discussion on that, within the first 40 to 45 minutes, giving us about 45 minutes for public commentary. I've got a handful of cards up here. If you want to speak, please make sure you get your green cards in. What we'll do is we'll see how many cards we've got, see how much time we've got left, and if we need to reduce the amount of time that is typically allowed per speaker, we'll do so, from either 5 minutes to 4 minutes or 3 minutes. If we still have a lot of speakers, we'll roll some of you over to the regularly scheduled meeting in the public commentary section. I don't want to do that, but if we don't have time, that's what we'll have to do, because we do have to start the 7 o'clock meeting as scheduled. I also intend to shuffle the cards up here. I don't want people not to have an opportunity to speak merely because they got here at one time or another. There won't be anything but randomness to the order in which you're all called. So with that, Dr. Jackson, if we can turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Fruman, and good evening to Board of Education and our visitors this evening. As Mr. Fruman had said, tonight's presentation is basically going to be touching a little bit on the elementary schools. I have, that's going to present most of tonight's information is Joe Kunkel. Just as a quick introduction, Joe Kunkel is the principal of SSOE. It's a full architecture and engineering services corporation. SSOE actually has well over 1,000 employees in Ohio and the United States, and actually has a couple offices out overseas. Joe, being the principal, has headed up the K-12 division in regards to architect and engineering for school projects over the last couple of decades with this company. He estimates that in Ohio alone, that OFCC projects over the last decade or so, probably nearly $1 billion worth of projects that it's gone through SSOE. And non-OFCC projects, about half of that, about $400,000 to $500,000 of those projects as well. So with that, this is my background with Joe. I've known Joe for a few years. I was an assistant superintendent in the Toledo area when Joe and his company was doing some significant renovations and to the Toledo City Schools. Joe also did some work with through SSOE in Sylvania, where I was the assistant superintendent. He also did a significant amount of work his company and through in Miamisburg, in the Dayton area, and some other areas as well. So with that, I trust Joe. I trust his numbers. When Joe tells me that it's going to be something, it's pretty much that. So with that, we'd like to begin this evening with just a little PowerPoint that we have. Susan, can you flip through that, or Joe, the first slide? I'll just go through the first couple slides here. What we're going to present tonight, or what Joe's basically going to present, is some various cost scenarios for our elementaries. What we want to do is we want to look at those projected construction costs to renovate existing elementary buildings as per the OFCC study. We've all had an opportunity on several occasions to reference the OFCC study, so we're going to look at those numbers, what they're saying. Then Joe is going to also talk about projected construction costs to renovate, replace existing elementaries to new as per OSSE, our consultant. Those numbers are a little bit different, but he'll go through some of those and the reasons for those. After that, our goal is to look at what are some projected costs if we were to, instead of looking at renovating all 6 of our elementaries, what if we went to 5 elementaries in our district? And then what those might be, and then also what's the projected construction cost to replace our elementaries and maybe going down to 4 elementaries. So we've got a lot to share this evening. We want to begin, the next slide, from the OFCC report that we received in late 2013. The numbers from the 6 elementaries currently are reflected here in front of you. Now, I put both numbers in there because OFCC's first number they share with in their study is, and for instance, their elementaries, they're saying it would take about $9.6 million to renovate that building, the existing facility only, to their standards. And then there's another reduction factor. It's about a little less than 2%, so I threw that number in there as well. So somewhere between 9.44 and 9.6 is what Air Elementary they projected to renovate that building. And we can go through these quickly. Maddox Elementary, a little over $10 million to about $10.5 million. Mercer Elementary, $15.5 to roughly $16 million. Sherwood Elementary, a little over $9 million to not quite $9.5 million, $9.3 million. Summit Elementary, $11 million to about $11.3 million. And Wilson. Now in their data that they gave to us is they actually gave numbers to renovate Wilson. They also said that the cost to renovate Wilson actually would have exceeded the amount that it would take to rebuild it completely from new. But the numbers that they show us for that is simply rebuilding Wilson as it is, not including the modulars. And their capacity numbers for Wilson, I believe, are around that 400 student, maybe 450 student range. So those numbers would be to renovate just the building itself at Wilson. So with that said, those are the numbers that we're going to start with and work with. And then I'm going to introduce again Joe Kunkel. Joe, you may go from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson, for the introduction. Members of the board, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Members of the community, look forward to this session to walk through this analysis of the elementary facilities, in particular relationship to the OFCC. Probably need to clarify, OFCC, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, Previous days was called the OSFC, Ohio Schools Facility Commission, strictly focusing on schools. In more recent years, a couple years, they combined the two. So occasionally when I say OFCC, that'll be an acronym we start using. I occasionally might throw in OSFC because back from 1995, I've been involved with this effort, even in doing the master planning and assessments in the Milford District and Talawanda District specifically. As we go through this, as Dr. Jackson said, we're going to zero in on 3 scenarios that the board has requested that we look at, and very specifically walk through Ayer Elementary as an example of a scenario of what could be accomplished and what the cost would be with what is being shown. And again, it's with the intent of creating a new environment, a new building, basically to renovate to new. As we look at the design manual, the OSFC numbers are, OFCC numbers are based on the Ohio School Design Manual, also referred to as the OSDM. That manual is established for building new buildings. It's a design criteria that becomes standard basically across the state. In more recent years, it has been heavily increased in terms of some aspects of LEED requirements, in terms of requirements for daylighting and energy efficiency, and some very specific requirements of how they see their new schools. So as such, when it comes to renovating an existing school, the more and more they're doing is comparing an existing building to, in essence, a brand new design building, more as a benchmark evaluation. We ourselves independently do our own evaluations and estimates using our own database. Dr. Jackson mentioned that we've done roughly close to $1 billion worth of construction associated with the OFCC/OSFC, and then other than that, about $400 million associated with non-OSFC work. And then beyond that, we have other databases that we go to in terms of using our estimates. Typically, we don't necessarily use the OSDM as the database for actually estimating construction costs, but we always use the benchmark that we evaluate against and look at. When we get into a renovation project, particularly renovation, and new construction, it's a whole different story with the OFCC numbers, and we'll just stay focused for clarity on the renovation piece right now. We talk briefly about one replacement as we go through the process here. When we get into the renovations, and compared to the manual or the OFCC criteria, we're often anywhere from roughly 50% of their number to 75% of their number. Even when we've done complete renovations, we did a 230,000 square foot 1915 historical high school renovation, that their number was somewhere around the upper 30s, 38 million or so, and even in that category, the actual cost being an OFCC, OSDM design manual criteria came in around 33. It still got all of the bells and whistles and was an award-winning design. But there's factors they put in there in terms of contract delivery and other things in terms of their numbers. So I'm not really here to necessarily validate their number against ours, but just to kind of show you the difference as we walk through and where our number came from, using it as an example school going through the Ayer Elementary. They categorize their whole thing using pretty much the complete alphabet, starting with A, in terms of these different categories. So what we've done is basically set up the same categories for the evaluation. On the heating side, at Ayer, the Ohio School Design Manual does not recognize the existing mechanical system as being acceptable, so they treat it as a complete replacement. And we're with Brad Mosher, a local engineer who's worked in these facilities, talking through with him. Basically, there's a lot of new air handling units and a lot of new equipment in this building that has value to it and has been very recently put in. So you have a lot of infrastructure who has a design life basically of a new building in terms of the infrastructure that was recently added on the HVAC side. So our number is basically $900,000 to upgrade that, which is the next level of air distribution and VAV boxes and such for individualized classroom pods. Roofing, again, our number is separate. Our number actually ended up being a little bit higher than the OFCC number, so we did plug in our number. I won't go through detail on these. Exhaust fans, a little bit less. Electrical is worth noting again. Again, talking to the engineer, Brad Motes, who's done a lot of work in the building and working with Ray through that basically existing supply in that building is a 2,000 amp power or service, and Brad said, the building power provisions are really more than adequate, but the OSDM, again, when they do the number, and again, this is just a metric they use in terms of putting a cost to it, because it does not meet the Ohio School Design Manual, they basically replace the whole thing. And going through this, Brad, that there is some upgrades we could use, but to tear everything out and start over again makes no sense. But the upgrades that even at $230,000 are fairly significant. We're talking about adding additional outlets and power and provisions associated with technology, and still putting emergency generator in the facility. There's similar scenarios in classrooms. You see they talk about natural gas, compressed air, safety showers. When you have a 6th grade in a building, they always add natural gas for as if it was a middle school lab. They don't design it and figure out where it's going to go, but they still put the number in. And as such, even though there are things we need to do plumbing-wise, there are a lot of things that they would dictate that we would not necessarily do. Adding an eye wash in the art area is a new code requirement, so we do see that as a good life safety provision. Windows, they're replacing all windows, and the other thing they do is add skylights, and it's not just a few skylights, it's basically numerous skylights. And skylights can always be problematic down the road, but the reason they add them is because the design manual, again, requires it in all new buildings, not skylights, but daylighting. In fact, skylights are, when we've done a new building with the OFCC, they say, try to avoid skylights, because typically there's a time when they leak. And so, you get everything into windows, south-facing glass, and clear stories. But because you don't have the opportunity to do that, they plug in this number, adding skylights throughout the building. And again, it's just to keep it so they have a metric to look at that compares it to new construction. And again, the reason our estimate would be different. Windows, we'd upgrade those areas that are just single glazed. Some minor structural foundation repair of cracking. Some tuck pointing, again, a number we came up a little bit below the OFCC number. There's areas where there is no work. The big ones, general finishes. They're talking about classroom partitions coming in air. I think most of you are familiar. It's pretty much an open classroom concept. They would say go in and put walls everywhere and create corridors. They don't design how to do that at this stage, but they put the number in associated with doing that. And it also includes in there a full kitchen, in essence, the kitchen equipment, well, really a kitchen replacement, almost $500,000 of kitchen replacement, which the way you function, I think you have a separate fund where you keep money coming in associated with replacing kitchen equipment, and that the kitchen would not really need that, although we could do some upgrades there, but nothing major. But we are talking about making some significant improvements in the building. Even a building that size, $1.5 million is quite a bit, considering that you have all the other categories where some of this money falls to. We would think about adding in, or taking the existing pods and walling them off as pods, so to create basically a first grade classroom pod, second grade, and one, it works in terms of acoustics, it works better in terms of safety and security for lockdown, and could truly provide an enhanced educational environment for the facility. Lighting systems, basically it's the same number, but we went at it separately, again working with Brad. You're saying with $5 a square foot, we do a lighting upgrade and do LED fixtures, really be top of the line, make it very, very adequate in terms of lighting. Cameras, security cameras, lights, monitors. Even in the assessment itself, they note that what you have is in either good condition, a couple things may have been fair, but basically said it was pretty much all in good condition, but it was not in line with the same criteria as the Ohio School Design Manual, which is very specific about how they do it, but does meet all the other criteria. And in those scenarios, we recommend, again, upgrading the system based on, again, wall changes, plus also a general upgrade in terms of access and cameras. Same thing with egress lighting. And they clearly state you meet the Ohio Building Code, which is the main criteria of your buildings meet the Ohio Building Code, but again, not the Ohio School Design Manual, so another upcharge is for modifications. Fire alarm, you're actually on schedule for replacing it this summer. And their number, Brad was saying, is about 70,000. So you can kind of see comparison-wise where it is. That's an actual, I won't say actual, that's not the specific number, it's probably rounded up a little bit, but it's compared to the 88,000. Handicap access, this gets into making provisions in specific restrooms. They were doing everything pretty much everywhere, again, to meet the same criteria that you would for a brand new school. In fact, even when we did the historical renovation, you can use Chapter 34 criteria in regards to upgrading a facility that you do need to make accommodations, but you don't necessarily have to tear the building upside down to do some things that are very difficult to do, but you do need to make the accommodations, and that's what we're saying here. We do need to make some very specific accommodations for handicap, make them highly upgraded and easily attainable, particularly the clinic area. We are talking a scenario for that where basically you could create a new clinic area. Site-wise, they have some general costs. We tried to identify a few specifics that would be beneficial from the site. Sewerage deals with the main sewer drains and also water supply. They had no work, we had no work there. Exterior doors, main entries, and also some hardware upgrades. A lot of your other doors are in fairly good condition, but some provisions there for hardware upgrades and improvements. And then the category for hazardous material, we plugged in, we're putting in the same number for floor removal, a little bit of floor removal and testing lead-based paint. The other one, fire suppression, we're always going to leave that up to the district. It's not required by the code for a renovation. Some places say yes, put it in. Some places say no, this is sprinklers. It is property protection more so than protection of egress in any manner, because when the heads go off after they are one at a time, when they hit 160 degrees roughly, but it is more property protection. So we, as I say, leave it up to the district to talk that through with your insurers and what's best for you as a district. Loose furnishings, the OFCC pretty much included an all-inclusive replacement of furnishings. We put in a fairly high number, but really replace as you go. And this probably number is probably a little more than you need. There's always a little concern when you're doing furnishings and replacing on a basis of a bond issue over 30 plus years. You know, things that may not last 30 plus years or shorter, but loose furnishings didn't used to be part of bond issues, but in the past 10, 15 years now, they now have become so. So we do think putting a number in there is very appropriate to address that. Technology-wise, they put in a number for all new, which was about double, about $12 a square foot. You have, the switches, the internet, the access, probably the things you need are at the classroom level themselves, the smart boards and some of the amenities in the classroom and directly serving the students. So we put in a number about half of that. So as we sum up toward the end, you can kind of see what the OFCC number is, and our number, OFCC 7.7, we're about 4.2. This is somewhat fairly standard in our experience in the past in doing mainly the non-OFCC projects. From this point, they had another contingency. They have very definitive contract delivery methods. We like to say the contract delivery should be what's best for your area, your region, for your project, in terms of you getting the best cost, best price, and best performance and quality in the end. We have found from, again, our experience that, fees and permits, 15%, a lot of the is a good number that works very well to set a budget. What this does, the 4.8 million, basically sets a budget number that says to this we can get you a level of design that in essence is a new building. And I'm going to go on to show that a little bit further, because again, this is a scenario, and with that comes a suggestion of what that could be. Again, on the OFCC side, this is kind of the soft costs really do a big bump at the end here, and take it to 9.6. I think they're also working a little bit different time frame. Their programs have to, from the time they put a number out there, has to go over a period of time that is probably more years than we would actually incorporate into escalation overall. So be another factor. So what I was going to do is going to kind of walk through and kind of give you all a feel. I guess, Colin, the board, see that? Okay. That's the existing building there. This is just a little bit of a, whoops, sorry about that. 3D imagery of the existing Air Elementary. Whoops. No, what did I do? Okay, I don't have a pointer, but you can see the open area is in essence the open classrooms area in the facility. And here's what we're proposing, again, as a direction of potential renovation to create something new. None of this is cast in stone, but this is kind of the sort of thinking that takes place. How can you take these classrooms and take the grade levels and create pods? They still be open within the pod, and we were doing pods probably several places through the years. Actually, in one school district, we have a very open pod scenario, somewhat similar to this, and basically have a track record of 10 years of experience and how well it worked. And what you've done in the facility, I understand, has worked very well too, even though you're very open. You're not just pods, you're basically one big pod. But with the existing partitions and walls going up, this kind of puts into a more permanent scenario what you're kind of accomplishing with bookcases and cabinets and such. Basically taking each of these and creating 4 classrooms within these pods, pointing to a number we're calling the tech wall. Now, whether it's right there or whether it's on one of the other walls, it is kind of immaterial right now, but the point is we're putting that into each classroom, that you basically get an upgraded space, and these rooms truly do feel like new classrooms in this building. Plus you have the access off the corridor, 2 entries into each. You still have the access to the outside, so there's very good egress out of these facilities from a safety and exiting standpoint. We know those 2 breakout areas, it kind of becomes in the library area. We use that in many schools where they just need a teaming or tutoring, where a student can go outside the classroom, be a table, and it can computer access there also. Again, it gives you more options with breakout and extended learning. In the center area, there's where when I talk about the plumbing, we put in new sinks, new cabinets, new counters, and would in essence be built up new. Now, the area in the front, having a security vestibule is always an issue, because you want to come in the front door and then you want to basically buzz yourself through the main office. And to make that work, the office was remotely located from the entry. We said, well, let's take about 1,000 square feet and add an addition to the building that could become the office area, but also the entry. And that gives us the opportunity also to take the nurses, or the clinic area, which had the restroom that was very poor in terms of ADA criteria, put it into a new space. And that leaves us with the existing space to become what we refer to as reprogrammed space. Again, from an educational standpoint, it gives you the opportunity, we're saying project learning labs. These all become part of that kind of extended learning opportunity outside the classroom, so that as we progress, we can truly do things that you couldn't do in the building before educationally. When you walk in the building at the end, it truly feels like it is a new building. Even at the entry, this is just a quick kind of sketch, not saying this is it, but give us some wow at the front entry so you feel like you're really walking into a new facility. It can be something exciting, and as the students arrive and as the people see it from the community. Again, this is just an idea that you'll be going through a bunch of sketches like this down the road, but just to give you again the feel and the idea. Now, a couple examples of renovate to new. Then it can be done, and that's what these represent. Something that looks like the upper left-hand corner can turn into the lower right-hand corner as a classroom, and takes in all the considerations of lighting and the right lighting, the correct lighting, and the boards, and the switching, the lighting of the boards. Even in an open pod setup, you still get all those added benefits. Because we are talking about basically the whole ceiling comes out, a whole new lighting and switching system goes in. Here, this was kind of an extreme makeover. This was actually a 6th grade. This is probably one of the most awful spaces in that it actually was a basement to the school, and it was the only place that this school had to expand. And there was quite a controversy as whether or not this would be acceptable. And we basically said, we were told we were going to make, basically we're going to make this the preferred classrooms in the building. And people thought that'll never happen. And basically, with because there's very little light down there, we did put a light well into it. But by using colors, again, these are kind of colors that are more sunshine colors. You really get the feel of light in the space, and it ended up teachers actually wanted these spaces rather than the ones on the upper floors. So the renovate to new is a real thing, and it's done and becomes exciting spaces. Okay. Now this is the comparison. Now this is also, there were 3 scenarios asked to look at. The first being basically 6 elementaries with the Wilson being in essence rebuilt. And this represents, now you see the number up there for Air Elementary, the 4.8 million under the consultant estimate being our estimate. The numbers going down that side of that similar takeoff on the other facilities we just walked through in Air for all the other buildings, except as you get down to Wilson. It's kind of strange, the number OFCC has for Wilson is really a renovate number, and that renovate number is actually a little higher than if you build a new. Now, when they look at building a new, they look at 56,800 square feet. We're saying we need to build this new for a decent capacity, which would be roughly about 700 and some students, roughly 700 students, and be about 73,000 square feet, for which we put a number in about 15.6 million, which is a little, for new buildings I mentioned before, it's a little bit below the OFCC number, but actually comes pretty close to the OFCC number. So under this renovation scenario, again, for the elementaries, and total them up, we're looking at a total of about 45.6 million. Now the next scenario is basically renovate for 4 existing buildings. The trick on this one is taking one offline and then building one new one, which would be probably Wilson replacement, although it doesn't have to be definitively that, but generically looking at renovating 4, 1 new and 1 offline. Now when we do that, when you work the numbers with the 3,900 plus students, you start subtracting it out and you get down to your 4 buildings remaining, and keeping them the size they are, there's only so much capacity. We basically needed to add space for roughly additional 12 classrooms. Now we're not sure those additional classrooms, probably the lion's share of one facility, and then maybe a paired of 2 somewhere else, or 2 somewhere else, or 4 somewhere else. The one that gets the lion's share, maybe even the other one, is going to have some support upgrades to it in terms of spaces such as cafeteria and gym, and the areas around to support that. So what we put in there was a little bit of a number about, it really told us during the classrooms in those support spaces about 4.5 million. So that if we need to add, we had a gym and we turned one of the gyms into a larger cafeteria and keep the other areas a different space and reprogram it. Don't know what the scenario could be. We kind of played around with those ideas in terms of formulating what a number would be roughly to plug into that scenario. Very, very doable. You do end up with the larger one building. Again, I'm just kind of picking probably the Wilson replacement of being 1,100 students, so it goes up a little more expensive in terms of being about 21.4 million. So this scenario then, where we're consolidating to basically 5 buildings, is roughly 49.1 million. Then the last one is basically 4 building scenario. And this lends itself to building for new elementaries. Basically, this is the best way to make that work, because they become fairly large. You want to design them as 950 to 1,000 students larger facilities in terms of break apart primary from some of the upper grades, and how you might treat the actual design of those spaces differently, and still make them feel like they're not large schools, which can be done. For schools of that size, our number is roughly 20 million each. Actually, the OFCC did their own evaluation of this scenario, and they had them at 22 million each. So it kind of fell where we kind of looked at being about 10% below the OFCC number on new construction. So we'd be at 80 million versus 88 million. And some of that is just the OFCC has some other different criteria that kind of pushes things even from a size standpoint. But that number, 80 million, would more than adequately get you the 4 new elementary schools. But you can see it becomes a much higher number than the previous scenarios. that leads us to questions. We try to keep it kind of short and concise and to the point.
Do the elementary schools have the same kind of non-OFCC facilities that we see at the high schools, or is that less of an issue at the elementaries? That is, the learning environments that, or the environments that are not part of the OFCC analysis. Have you seen that much at the elementaries?
I mean, in terms of the Office of CC spaces, you mean? And
Well, for instance, now at the high schools, they're not looking at the athletic net.
oh, okay. At the elementary, because we, in terms of the new particularly, would there in essence be what we, from OFCC standpoint, called the locally funded initiative? Not so much, because OFCC gives every elementary a full cafeteria. If you're looking, so we'd be looking at the same thing, a full cafeteria, full gym. They don't do any combining. They do look a little bit at having the performance area, which is often opening a door between the elementary and the cafeteria in the new design. Are there things that you have in your existing ones that you'd be losing and going? I guess it's really the question. If you did go to the third scenario where we built them new, are there things that you'd be losing that you've kind of done yourself that the OFCC or would put into it? I don't think so. I think you can pretty much capture everything you have and then some. You have full-fledged art rooms. Some things would be much nicer. But again, when you renovate to new, we can go back and make those things nice. So it's I don't think you're losing anything as compared to the high schools.
So when you use that example, is in the renovate to new options, is there anything addressing those areas? Or would they be untouched? Like, would the gym areas be untouched in the renovate?
No. The gym we still have some dollars in there for, fix up, basically the floors, if they're wood floors, be redone, lighting, painting, usually if there's any sort of associated facilities with them. We still go through on renovated to new, all the spaces, and you at least get the fix up. If a space, I guess the lowest end would be the space, if the floor is really good, and the tile was no problem, we still paint the walls and put the new light fixtures in. If the new switching was appropriate. So as you walk through the building, the whole thing would be, improved. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
In scenario A, the renovate 5 to new and replace Wilson. Obviously, you've got additional capacity at Wilson to replace the trailers. But does this include enough capacity to replace the trailers in the entire school district for the elementaries?
Yeah, because right now you have at Mannix and Wilson. Yes, this scenario does address that issue.
Because obviously we've had discussions about savings by consolidation, but at this point, our enrollment in elementaries exceeds our capacity. And so there is nowhere to consolidate unless we build new classrooms. I just wanted to make sure the number, the 45.6 that we're looking at, included the additional capacity.
It may be fairly balanced. It's one of those things that you think we need a little more of a buffer to. It wouldn't take much to add, another 100 to 200 somewhere to 4 classrooms or something. But this balances right now with what you have.
Well, I just want to make sure to get rid of the trailers.
Well, what I'm at, is that what you mean when you say add extending learning space at Summit and Maddox? Is that what that is?
Well, that's actually making those office areas. It does become part of the ability for more capacity too, but it depends on how we address it. That may occur more in some other areas like at Maddox. Actually, we talk about Maddox specifically, add extended learning space. That actually looks also potentially making that added space be in a couple, 2 to 4 classrooms. We didn't want to pinpoint it exactly, but that's what because that is added space at Maddox, square footage.
How long does the renovate to new process, if we said one building, we want to renovate to new, how long does that take compared to building a new building?
Time frame is not that. Usually you start like you try to get 2 summers. So you start like in the spring, get a head start, do a lot of things during the summer you can't do during the school year, then do during the school year what you can do, then wrap up the following summer. For these size schools, if they were bigger, it might be a couple summers. When you get to a large school, like a high school, it's a little different. But for these size elementaries, you can do a lot while things are going on, and you can do a lot during the summers. I'm trying to think, would be fine. Sure, would be fine. I think really all of these, I think, would be okay in that scenario.
And if you start it during the school year, what do you do with the kids while the renovations are going on?
Well, during the school year, the stuff that you do in the school year would be very limited, probably queuing and setup. And if there's stuff to start in some of the spaces, in the mechanical rooms, if we actually needed, in the pod areas, there would probably be an area where you would do a queuing of students. And it might be in the gym or something where one pod at a time, let's take air for example, you might do 1 or 2 pods at a time that might go into the school year. You might try to get a couple of them done during the summer. We could, basically walk through a whole scenario on that, but we would be very careful and very specifically lay out what area is kind of walled off. And again, we've done this many a times, and we've actually built corridors down the middle. We actually built a construction corridor where nobody can enter that area other than the construction trades. And then you basically put those classrooms in a gym area or somewhere. But there's several ways of approaching that. It's very doable.
Joe, I have to tell you that I'm a little skeptical of the term. I've never heard the term renovate to new until we started to go through this process. And really, it's not new. It's still an older building that we're improving. And I guess it concerns me a little bit that the figures that you come up with are about half of what OFCC says. And we have a number of districts all around us that have built recently to OFCC standards. So how does that make us look if we're at half of what OFCC suggests and we're in the middle of all these other districts that have, and I know that like Cincinnati got a lot of money from elsewhere, but there are other school districts that actually went to the voters and got the money. So we're at half of what the OFCC suggests. How do we respond to that?
Well, again, are those districts primarily renovation, or are they primarily new buildings, or a mixture of both?
I think both.
Okay. I mean, from the new building side, obviously it's a little different. From the renovation side, again, we've done district north here of Miamisburg, which is roughly an $80 million. OFCC had it about double that. And yet, if you walk through some of the spaces in there, we can almost show you what that looks like, particularly in terms of the high school. The high school, the estimate from OFCC was roughly $13 million. We had roughly $7 million that it cost. There's all sorts of factors, and I explained a little bit. I'm not knocking. Again, OFCC numbers here are metric. And a lot of these have been brought up higher in just recent years because a lot of the criteria from leads and from the design that incorporated into it. But in that area, we were probably about 60 to 75% of the cost of the OFCC. And part of it was even the way we bid the job. But even just from the estimate, again, there's, our database has been very successful, and it has fallen in place as being roughly in that realm. When we do the OFCC work, as I mentioned, the one that was the historic renovation, even that one, we were still 10 to 15% below, and we had all the bells and whistles and everything that went into it. It was neatly packaged and clean. It's been, my experience, I'm not sure all these other districts are falling out with the renovation, probably more concerned with the renovation costs. But the new, I can see the new coming in fairly close.
Let me just ask, OFCC includes a 19-point-something% management, contingency, consultant fee.
Yes.
Does yours include something like that, or is that where some of this, I don't want to call it savings, but the net difference is coming from?
Some of it is, but not all of it. I mean, we put in the 15%, they used the 24.4%. The projects we've done, we've left it open to the district wanted to go CM, and they basically did a modified version where they kind of brought in their own clerk of the works to function as their CM, so by strategically doing it a little bit differently. There's been some discussion that sometimes there's a lot of, of other things that come along with doing an OFCC project in terms of contractors and bidding and such. What if there is, there may or may not be. I don't want to get into that, but we just find that a lot of these we've been very successful from a competitive bidding standpoint, from clarification of what it is you're really trying to do, and not always doing. Again, the big ones are like when OFCC says you got to replace your whole mechanical system. And you just put this mechanical system in 6 and 8 years ago. We've had those. Where you got to build a mechanical system that's 9 and 10 years old, but it doesn't meet the Ohio School Design Manual. Yet it's a very acceptable system. And it, a lot of reason districts get in this because they want to be prudent in terms of how they spend that money, and to go back and find out someone goes back and say, didn't we just put that system in 10 years ago? Didn't we just put those air handling units on the roof 5 years ago? Those are the things we want to capture and say, yeah, let's not replace those. Same thing, the big ones are HVAC and electrical. When I talked to Brad, I said, we got 2,000 amps in that building. Don't know what we need a new power in air for. We're only using a little over half of that. Part of it is because OFCC said, well, you're electric. You can't be electric by their criteria, plus some other criteria they have.
Well, I've heard situations east of here where when they've got a significant portion of the build or renovate money came from OFCC, they went ahead and replaced it anyway because they had the money and it wasn't being paid for locally.
That's correct. That's the reason.
And so that makes, you know.
Usually the factor gets to be a point where you're getting, we started years ago, we were working with districts who were getting 90 cents on the dollar. That was easy. It doesn't matter, you just go ahead and do it. And even there we came in, the bids came in. We've never gone over budget on an OFCC project. I think that back when the price of steel went up in 2002, everybody went over budget. But other than that, and then we started dealing, as it kept going down the ladder, we started getting into districts that were maybe 40% or 50%, well, 60% first. We got into some that 40% did the math and said it didn't work for them. Some of them said it didn't work because OFCC was making them do things in the master plan they didn't want to do. When we got down to anything in the under 20%, only district was River Valley, where we had the roughly 20%, but they were pairing it with environmental money that made it more like 30 to 40%. But when we got down below 20%, I've not had a district that's, to my knowledge, and I'm not going to OFCC on this, you know, I'm just saying our experiences, I've not had a district that's gone on board with it because of those reasons.
Joe, it's not important to me whether other communities think we did or didn't build OFCC standards. What I care is what we're going to end up with. At the end of the day, are you telling us that this renovate to new with the numbers that you've run, whether we're looking at 4, 5, or 6 elementaries, is going to bring every single building into the 21st century learning environment? That's what I want to know.
Yes.
Well, in addition to that, I guess I would wonder if the buildings, if we do renovate to new rather than build new, will the renovate to new buildings have as long a useful life as brand new buildings?
I say yes, qualifying that we're talking about a 40-year design life typically. It means another 40 years is when you're going to have to do something. They'll probably be around for another 100 years. But you know, just like a new building, in 40 years you're going to have to do significant work to a new building. So when you build it new, you're going to have the same, you have a new air handling unit in 25 years, it's going to have to be changed out, just like a new building. So there's really not a whole lot of difference between the renovate to new and the new. You might have a little bit of, you know, what's nice about some areas in district, they were able to keep kind of the style of the architecture was classic, and we put the additions onto it that kind of give a very high-tech look, and the two blended very well, and that building will be around another 100 years plus.
Well, what about like energy efficiency? Will they be as energy efficient as a brand new building?
Well, we're putting all LED fixtures in. You know, I would say very, very close. I mean, in terms of, when you talk about energy, you always talk about payback. In terms of payback,
I'm talking about running the buildings on a cost-effective basis.
correct. And everything we put in the system, everything in the building would be based on that. Particularly, again, the opportunity to add LED fixtures, really reduce electric rates in these buildings. You've already done a lot to reduce electric rates, and you can take another step in that direction.
Did your for new building, $20 million a piece, does that include demolition of the existing site?
There is a $500,000 number is kind of buried in there for demolition of Wilson. It's in the Wilson 15.6. It's also in the 20 kind of across the board.
Other questions?
Yeah. Last meeting, we talked about looking to the future a little bit, and I want to make sure when we're evaluating these numbers, we know what we're talking about here. We talked a little bit about planning for the potential for full-day kindergarten, whether we decide or it's decided for us. And I'm trying to see Dallas down at the end. Does this do all three of these scenarios include, I think we talked about doing a partial full-day kindergarten planning, which would also give us some capacity. The other concern I have is if we build to our exact enrollment right now, yes, I know we've seen projections, sometimes some of them right now show down, but we've seen projections that set down and went up. So my concern is full-day kindergarten, and second, what kind of variance do we have on the enrollment from designing and building to our exact enrollment for today?
These numbers that you're seeing do not have all-day kindergarten included. I think Joe mentioned a few minutes ago in those scenarios that in each of the scenarios we have placed some contingencies for a couple additional classrooms if that's what's needed when he's talking about extra learning space. But we did not plan for any all-day kindergarten. And again, we've talked about that. Now, the goal would conceivably be if we could maybe start some extended day classrooms across the district, we could do so. I think those would easily fit into those numbers. Or, as Joe also mentioned, the fact that if we needed to add a couple classrooms at a specific building or so, then the cost would not be all that significant. I mean, all that significant would be a few $100,000, but we could do that. What we wanted to try to show was just what it would be to replace our current facilities with a 4, or reduce it from a 6 to a 5, or to renovate 5 and a new.
Okay, so
In the new even, if you'll see the new scenario, going back to that, we built that new building, we'll call it the Wilson, for lack of a better term, to a higher student capacity number that would allow for some additional classroom space for a couple all-day kindergarten sections.
Okay, I just want to make sure we understand what we're looking at so we can compare, as we said before, apples to apples here. And then the other issue is I certainly wouldn't want to finish a project and have the state 1 year later mandate full-day kindergarten and we go, oh gee, now what do we do? Or how do we pay for it?
Right, there would be a number of districts in that same category.
Yeah. Susan, do we have more than these cards?
Joe, could I ask you one question while the lovely Susan is walking up? Did you consider in any of this a different configuration in that right now we have sort of traditional K through 6 in our buildings? Did you look at grade banding in essence? Do you know what grade banding is?
Yeah, you're talking about bracketing alignment in some way, or?
No, I'm talking about like buildings being like a couple buildings being K through 2, a couple buildings being 3 through 5, and then middle school 6, 7, 8, something like that. Would a different configuration have any effect on what you've done? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think I understand. I mean, from a standpoint of, so much of this is dependent on classroom count. It kind of gets into the area, if it did to be more minor, it might be something in terms of very specifics, but it would not be a major significant capital modification. We had talked earlier about alignments being different. I think we did look at like a pre-K, K, and some primary, but in the end we kind of treat them all as the pre-K 6 scenario. But I don't think there would be a huge impact if we did something different along those lines, as long as the numbers and the classroom sizes fell into place.
All right. Any other questions for Joe? Let's do this. I have only got 7 cards, so we'll have time to get through all these. What I'd like to do is just take 2 minutes. If anybody wants to fill out another card, do so now, and then we'll pick up in 2 minutes and then take comments until our 7 o'clock meeting. If we can continue, please. Timing worked out well. We've got 11 cards, if I counted them right. We'll do 3 minutes each. You will be timed, not because I want to cut you off, but because I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak. So I will apologize in advance if I cut anybody off. I'm not being rude. I'm trying to give everybody an opportunity. All right. First to speak is Sandy Kirkham.
My name is Sandy Kirkham. I have lived in the district for 32 years. I have 2 children who've gone through the Forest Hill School District. My daughter graduated in 2003 and my son in 2000. I know tonight was primary for elementary, so I appreciate the opportunity to address the high school issue as well. I am in favor of 2 high school configuration, but rather than discuss the pros and cons of those plans or configuration, I would like to talk about what the community wants and what the community would support. This past November, we had an election. Two of the candidates were vocal in their views of what they promoted. Tony Hemmelgarn supported the two high school configuration, and Rich Newman favored one high school. The voters went to the polls and overwhelmingly elected Tony Hemmelgarn. So in my mind, I believe the voters have spoken as to what position they would take in regards to one or two high schools. Clearly, when given a choice between two positions that were so opposite of each other, the voters voted for the position of two high schools. I also believe that when the voters voted, they demonstrated by their votes to this board the direction that they want this board to go. I am also concerned that without the majority of support for one high school, it would be very difficult to pass and get the funding for such things. It would be difficult to expect a community who clearly voted for a candidate who was in favor of two high schools then to ask them for money to support something as one high school that they don't want and clearly demonstrated. So I respectfully would ask the board to consider taking our time and your time and energy in promoting an agenda of one high school.
Thank you.
And of two high schools.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkham. Sarah McGough.
Can you hear me okay? Thank you. I am a proud grad of Forest Hills District. I have no children in the school system, and I moved here with the intent to send my tax dollars and my children to Forest Hills. I am part of the 70%. I don't have kids here, but I have a vote. I am not alone, and the reason I planted roots here is because of the blue ribbon schools, the small class sizes, and the property value. I recently joined this conversation because I wanted to see what the community would gain if we went to one high school. From reading the commentary on social media, I think it's clear the community needs to be reminded that the main need here is updating our facilities. The students in our district, our rating, and our community are not suffering because our children go to different schools or because we don't have a men's volleyball team. They're suffering because we have facility deficiencies in 8 of the 9 buildings, which thank you for addressing some of those today. Leaking roofs, pipes that burst, a moldy pool, not enough classrooms, to name a few. Let's remain focused on addressing those facility issues and put aside personal agendas. We need to come together as a community, dig in our wallets, and do what's right for our kids and our taxpayers. And what is right is a fiscally responsible plan that includes all students in our district without disturbing that award-winning education. Whatever the plan may be, we may not all like it, but we need to come together and move forward. And of the 3 options from a high school perspective that has been shared, all of them come with a high price tag, but none of them fix the facilities. All of the facilities, like K through 6. So that I can't support those. But thank you for sharing what you did today, because I think that will create a full continuous plan. So what's the solution to bring the board together and in turn the community? I don't have the answer, but I think that I would challenge the board that we need to start by removing the one high school option from the plan for the following reasons. It's fundamentally changing why so many people are attracted to the community and bringing their tax dollars here. The small graduating class sizes that foster award-winning education, the teachers, is why people are here. The teacher-student ratio might remain the same with one high school, but the competition within the community will only grow. I just don't see the fiscal sense in one high school. It requires the community to invest $50 million more to potentially save $1 million a year. It requires cutting 10 salaried positions. We still need operating levies. We'll still need money to fix other aging facilities. We could use that $50 million to fix the other facilities. It's a no-brainer. The board The community has told you once before in a market research survey that it's not in favor of one school, and the community is telling you again on social media. Let's listen. Let's not ask the community for more money to build something they don't want when that money is desperately needed in other places.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGo. Libby Hardawig.
Hello, my name is Libby Hardawig. I have lived here in the township for 14 years. I am not a grad of either Anderson nor Turpin. I did not go to the Forest Hill schools. However, my husband did graduate from Turpin. When he proposed, he said, "Will you marry me?" and moved to Anderson Township. I went to 12 years of Catholic schools. It did take some convincing, a lot. I can be stubborn for me to send our oldest to kindergarten when that time came. I walked into Wilson and saw what I would describe as a little box, and was going to put my baby girl in there, and I was scared. I did not like it, but after being convinced by my sister who teaches at Air, friends that have grown up in the district, I went ahead with it. So here I am now. My daughter's in 5th grade, my son's in 3rd at Wilson, and it has been known that it wasn't the building around them falling down, leaking roofs, that made it what it was. It was the education that they're receiving due to those professionals that have helped them grow. No doubt, we need to improve Wilson, but I think it needs to go with all of our facilities. When I emailed the board, it was brought to my attention to be a voice and get up there and say what you want to say, so that's why I'm here. We can argue 1 versus 2 high schools till the end and back. I guess I've been for 2 high schools, but because it hasn't been proven to me that 1 will better educate my children. And strictly by education. I know we're a sports family, of course I do look at those kind of things, but I think there's more opportunities with 2 schools in education, academics, theater, band, sports, whatever it may be. My concern also was the elementary schools. Thank you for addressing that tonight. I think that was very helpful, and looking at the entire situation, not just high schools, where only those students are going to, have a better facility. We do have a unique situation. I do think that, I believe going against what the community has said to you in surveys, voted for in November, by voting for whatever candidates it is, I do believe that whatever your plan is, that you will take consideration into being fiscally responsible, as well as what the community has said. If you don't get behind that, the community is not going to support you. Which is my fear. And my fear is that the voice that we all put on social media, we need to support you and be that voice in that manner too. Not just because it's not what we want, that we're going to vote no because I didn't get my way, because that's childish. The rivalry is going to be there, of course, but we voted for this board. I trust that they're going to make a good, educated decision, but they need to be a united front so that we can be a united front right behind them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hardaway. Karen Merhofer.
Hi, I'm Karen Merhofer. I have had children in this district, I had children in this district for 24, we've been here 24 years. I had 5 girls. They had outstanding education, great experience in the schools that they attended. Clearly, the board has read all the national studies, and they've seen that medium-sized schools are the best schools. They offer the best education for all of our children. And this is something across the board, not just high school, but elementary schools as well. I look at some of these buildings, and I really am shocked that we want to put 1,100 students into an elementary school. It's a lot of kids. A lot of kids. We'll probably never get more buildings like we really need, but certainly we have to think about how many kids we're stuffing into these buildings. So I think the board has done a fantastic job, really, of getting the pulse of the community. 65% of us have confirmed that they would like the district configuration of schools to remain as they are. It's just a shame that we have allowed a minority group of people to continue to stop a process that needs to move forward. What we need now is a plan to renovate, which you clearly are doing, or build new schools, which would be my vote, of course. But that's me. And we need a plan that's going to appeal to all of our voters. So I thank you for doing your due diligence, and I appreciate that you would prefer to have a unanimous vote. However, every year that we delay the decision adds to the further deterioration of our schools.
Thank you, Ms. Meerhofer. Kristen Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here. I really appreciate these discussions. They've been invaluable. My name is Kristen Meyer, and I'm a Forest Hills girl through and through. I grew up here in Anderson Township and Forest Hills schools, including some that are no longer the schools they were then. Newtown, Summit, Forest Hills Junior School, and Turpin. All three of my kids now attend Wilson Elementary for just 1 year in 6th, 3rd, and kindergarten. I want to start off by saying that I'm not up here because I have all the answers. I strongly believe that those of you on the school board are the only people that have all the knowledge and information needed to make these decisions. I have my trust in you all, and thank you for your hard work. My words today are intended to be encouraging and offered as suggestions for navigating these difficult waters. I first got involved in the facilities discussion after the bond issue failed last May. I started to try to figure out why it didn't pass, given my 5th grade at the time son Max is coming, when I told him the next morning, "But Mom, why didn't the voters like Wilson?" Given the less than great conditions at Wilson, I was concerned and wanting to get involved to make my voice heard and prevent the same thing from happening again. Wilson's a phenomenal school despite its crumbling facilities. However, I wonder how many of you live in a house with a leaky roof, no air condition, and numerous other electrical and plumbing issues. I sure don't, but I send my 3 children off to live in one all day at Wilson. Not to mention my daily concern for their safety, worsened by the non-conventional layout of Wilson. Kids were regularly walking outside without teachers or adult supervision just to get to the bathroom, another class, the cafeteria, or the office. I think it's clear something has to be done about Wilson. Since then, I've learned quite a bit more about the condition of all the Forest Hills facilities and some of the reasons for the bond issue failure. The primary reason for the failure, in my opinion, was a factor that very much still plagues us today. There is a fraction in the voters with children in the Forest Hills schools. Without nearly all of these voters supporting a bond or levy, it will not pass. From the discussions that I have heard in the previous facilities meetings, as well as those on social media and in other venues, this issue remains my #1 concern. If we do not figure out how to come together as a community of people who support these schools and the children within them, we will not succeed. In the spirit of offering encouragement and suggestions for you all, the school board, I think if the 5 of you can come to an agreement, 6 of you, on a plan, we will all fall in behind you. So far, it's obvious to me that you are not all on the same page with regard to the future of our facilities. As I said before, I do not have all the answers, but I have learned some things over the years of having my children in public education. One thing I know for sure is that smaller is better. Smaller class sizes lead to better results. Lower student-to-teacher ratios lead to better results. At this point in time, my kindergarten daughter has 27 children in her class at Wilson.
Ms. Meyer?
2 who did not speak English. I'm out of time?
I apologize.
Shoot, okay.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer, and I'm sorry. Elizabeth Barber?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Barber, and I am a 1998 graduate of Forest Hills Schools. I have a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and 1 on the way, so my kids aren't in the schools yet. I'm not going to talk about the configuration, believe it or not. I'm here because I caught wind this past week that several of our district leaders, including some of them are sitting here tonight, have been encouraging and influencing people to support one configuration over another. This was very surprising and concerning to me, considering that this process at this point is supposed to be open and unbiased and in front of all of us to see. And so I decided that I would try to get people here to speak for the side that I knew that they weren't rallying for. And as you can hear so far, there's no one here. Many of those people that I reached out to are people that have confided in me privately. They are people who are afraid to speak their true opinions to the leaders because they know what the leaders really think. And they're people who are really respected and trusted in this district, but they won't stand here and show their face. These are people who, during the bond levy, were encouraging it to be voted down. And they're people who you really want on your side, but they're afraid to talk to you. So tonight I thought I would stand up here and speak for who I will call the silent majority. And the reason I use the word majority is because the bond levy failed, and Julie Bissinger, who's been the one facilities holdout, received 7,500 votes in November, which was more than Rich or Tony. So I guess I just want to ask you guys, have you honestly and genuinely asked your leaders, free from intimidation, coercion, and political maneuvering, have you asked your teachers, your administrators at all the school buildings, not just a few of them, the heads of your district organizations, and the independent organizational design experts of school districts? These people that are in our midst and leading our kids and leading families in this district don't feel free to speak, and they don't feel heard. Just like last May, they're holding their opinions for the ballot box. You have been listening to the public really well. As was mentioned, social media has been a firestorm. There have been surveys and emails to the board. But when I think about that, I feel like that's like asking my 5-year-old daughter what house we should buy. She's not aware of our finances. She doesn't know our income. She doesn't know the expenses. She doesn't know what our jobs are going to look like in 10 or 15 years. And she's going to want to move to the mansion with the Riverview. and that makes perfect sense. But it does not make sense to ask an emotional and opinionated public when you have leaders saying these things.
Ms. Barber, your time.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Barber. Vince Maurer.
Mr. Fruman, members of the board, thank you. I've had the opportunity in the past to serve on boards with tough decisions facing them and less than unanimity. It's hard, and I have sympathy for the job you have, and frankly, wouldn't care for it. I know you've seen the numbers. No sense talking about those anymore. I know you've heard plenty about people who think that opportunities for our students would be reduced if we adopted the one high school configuration, and that seems to be the decision that's keeping us from moving forward in total, is to decide that question, get all everybody behind it, and then we can move forward. And so it's my belief that if you look beyond the numbers and the discussions generally towards how it affects your students, which is, after all, the reason you all are in the positions you are and the reason our staff is where they are, that we can come to the right conclusion, which I personally think is, as we have now, 2 high schools. So within my remaining part of my 3 minutes, 2 quick examples that I hope will prove what we might lose with 1 high school. 4 years ago, a member of the American Legion contacted the principal at Turpin and was able to get through to the principal, which might not be true in a school of twice the size with twice the staff to manage. And that person asked about a program that they have ongoing and a student who might participate. The principal knew her students. Even though this young man was a freshman, she knew him, thought he would fit, and in fact suggested to this freshman, hey, do this. He did. He's been doing it now for 4 years. And that freshman has within his circle a number of Legionnaires, a lot of veterans, people that wouldn't be in his community otherwise. Our schools are better for it because these people know about our schools, and one of our students, that young man, is better for it. And those members of the community appreciate the fact they could call the principal at a high school. Number 2, again at Turpin, and I'm sorry that these are both Turpin, that's what I know. Turpin's marching band, excellent like Anderson's, had 2 students who can't march, physically just couldn't march. The band director knew that. That's obvious to everybody for these 2 young people. What the band director knew, because he could know the students, was that they would like to be in the marching band, and they could and would be willing to learn a percussion instrument they could play in the pit, even though they weren't ordinarily percussion players. That was able to be arranged at the Turpin Marching Band because it's small enough they could accommodate 2 non-percussion players in the pit for marching band purposes only, and it happened. Might not happen in a larger school, as I'm sure you've heard before. Some of our larger schools in our vicinity are auditioned for their marching band, particularly in areas where there are lots of student musicians, percussion being one of them. I'm going to quit by saying those are 2 things that happen wonderfully in our schools that I suspect none of you probably knew. And I really fear they wouldn't happen if we had twice the number of people with twice the number of students trying to manage them. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Maurer. Glenn Prosser.
After I heard Christy going, I was going to give her a couple of my minutes. She was on a roll. I'm Glenn Prosser. This is actually our 3rd time here in Anderson Township. Both our children were educated here, had a great experience. They're now off to their careers, doing very well. My wife's a school teacher here in this district. She's been so for 17 years. As far as myself, I was involved in some of the earlier facilities committees, which interestingly enough, everyone's talking about 1 high school or 2 high schools. Interestingly enough, the recommendation of the facilities committee actually offered 2 proposals, one a 1 high school scenario, another a 2 high school scenario. So there was a proposal given back 3-4 years ago, which nothing ever happened to. And I got to tell you, that is frustrating because I know a lot of people spent a lot of time working on it, and it fell on deaf ears. No one has said it tonight, but I'm going to say it, and talking with some of you, I think you're in the same place as I am. I'm incredibly frustrated. I am incredibly frustrated with the lack of progress that this district, this outstanding district, has had over the past several years around this entire issue. You know, just as there are Republicans and Democrats in Washington, D.C., and you know what happens over there, there are 1 high school and 2 high school people here. And as long as that's the case, I sense we're not going to see a lot of progress. As Ronald Reagan said to, I believe, Soviet President Gorbachev, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. What we've got to do, at least for some period of time, is tear down the walls, whether you're a 1 high school or a 2 high school board member, think open, and come up with the best solution. It has to happen. We're in deadlock. We're our own version of Washington, D.C. Forest Hills is a huge district. It's a large business. We have to treat it as a business. I've been with Proctor for 31 years now. I'm off doing something else, and anything this large requires more than board member meetings every 3 weeks that last an hour or 2 hours, or an administration who does a wonderful job with the students trying to fly the plane and fix the engine at the same time. You can't do that. There are other ways to do it. My recommendation would be find a third party. There are, I don't know if you know the idea of an owner's rep, where a person could come in and on behalf of the district work and come up with a recommendation. Perhaps you give that group of people the objective of coming up with a 1 high school scenario and a 2 high school scenario. Give me the best of both, and then you talk about it. But it's very difficult for a board that meets every 2 weeks or 3 weeks for an hour and a half to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Prosser. Joe Kelly.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Joe Kelly. My wife and I are products of the Forest Hills School District. We have 5 children currently in the district and have long been proponents of Forest Hills. I'm not going to stand here today and tell you my ideas for the district. I do have opinions and thoughts, but frankly, I do not have enough facts to form an opinion on configuration. And I feel confident saying that most everyone in this room could say the same thing. This room is filled with smart people. Good decisions come from gathering facts, employing solid reasoning, comparing scenarios, and analyzing all situations. Bad decisions come with emotion, impulse, and anger. No one wants to admit it, but sadly, we are a splintered community right now, with the division among Anderson parents, Turpin parents, and a segment of voters who remain upset with the poorly constructed bond levy that failed to impress anyone last May. The Forest Hills School District is in a very precarious, dangerous state right now. If the district chooses to run to the table to put on a November ballot anything that closely resembles what took place last May, it too will be soundly defeated by Forest Hills parents and a township expecting a comprehensive plan from this board. I strongly encourage the board members to take the necessary time to move forward with a plan that will benefit our students and not rush into something in order to appease factions of people who choose to make poor decisions based on not enough information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Thank you very much. Tim McLaughlin.
Hello, my name's Tim McLaughlin. I've been a resident here my entire life, born and raised here. 4 children. 1 graduated from Turpin. I have another one now and 2 more still to come. So we are in the Forest Hills School District. The thing that has me frustrated, like a lot of you, about the 1 high school configuration. I am a proponent of the 2 high school, and I'm still confused why this is still an issue. Back on October 18, 2010, per Dallas Jackson's recommendation, the board unanimously voted to keep the 2 configuration high school. Now here we are again, 4 years later, with the same topic. We had another study done, a scientific study that was published for the same thing again, 1 high school to 2 high schools, and again with those results, came back unanimously, keep the 2 high schools. So I'm still confused why this is still an issue. And I'm, for one, I don't do social media. My kids have to help me with it. I'm old school. It is what it is. But why are we still, having this issue? Again, like Joe got to earlier, we need to move on. This needs to be put to bed so we can focus on other things. That's the frustrating part, and I think that's why a lot of us are here tonight, is for that. A lot of people are frustrated. I'm not afraid to speak my mind. You can ask the administration at Turpin about that. They know that. But I give a lot of time back as well, but we do it for the kids. It shouldn't be about the parents, about anything else. It should be about the kids. That's what we do everything for, is for our kids. And I'd like to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. McLaughlin. Dan Goddard.
Thank you, Board, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I've been here in the Anderson and Forest Hills School District since 1992, which is 22 years. My children, I had a daughter and a son, did not go to the Forest Hills schools. We chose a private route, but I've been a firm supporter of the schools since we've been here. In my whole adult life, I've only voted down twice, or voted against a school levy twice. I was for the Nagel school board, or the school levy, and voted for that. But then the board come back a year later talking about operation costs and try to slip through another levy. So I voted against that one. As gentleman earlier said, I also voted against the last levy because of how poorly it was presented. As far as what's going on now, I really don't care if you go to 1 or 2, but I think there's more to it than just the construction cost. I haven't heard any discussion around operational cost after the decision is made. And I think that is a critical part of that decision, that the operational costs need to be analyzed just as much as the construction cost. Someone said that there was a $50 million difference. That's only if you go with renovation. Right now, what I saw in the paper last week was 2 new buildings was $100 million, and 1 new building was 110 to 115. Beyond that, what is the operating difference between operating 2 separate facilities versus 1? If you can show me one way or the other is more beneficial financially, you got my vote. But right now, with all the bickering going on and the lack of clarity on what the total cost is, which includes operational costs, I can't see voting for another levy until we get a clear view.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. It's like we timed that or something. So that's all the cards. Why don't we take 5 minutes and then we'll start our 7 o'clock meeting. Thank you all so much. We very much appreciate you being here. You're welcome to stay for the 7. Thank you. I know we're a little bit late. We'd like to continue. For those of you that are just getting here, we actually started our meeting at 5:30 today with a work session on facilities. We're now continuing with our regularly scheduled meeting. Apologize that we're running a little bit late. We're on item 4.1, approval of the minutes from the March 24th, 2014 meeting.
I move approval.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss? Yes. Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Yes. Mr. Crum?
Yes. And next is the approval of the special meeting on March 28th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss? Yes. Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Yes. Mr. Crum?
Yes. Correspondence, Dr. Jackson?
Yes, I'll be brief this evening. There's one really exciting piece of correspondence that we received at the end of March, and we talked a little bit about the guest teachers that we were looking into, and we were notified as a school district that we've been selected to participate in the guest teacher program. As a quick reminder, what that is we will be participating to bring 2 teachers from China to our school district that will begin teaching next year in our district and offering a new world language and a cultural experience. Very excited about that. I want to thank Natasha and Brad Chamberlain for the work they did in getting that accomplished. Thank you.
Mr. Tepper, any correspondence? We do have procedure for public commentary. We've already had some tonight. This is not a public meeting, but a meeting held in public. If anyone cares to address the board, fill out a green card, and you'll give you the opportunity to speak with us at the appropriate time during the meeting. And next, I'm very pleased. The best part of every meeting is candidates for graduation. Mr. Broadwater?
Good evening. It is my pleasure to ask for a motion to approve the granting of a high school diploma to the following student who has completed all requirements for a diploma from Anderson High School, and that student's name is Rebecca Jane Algieri. And I don't know if Rebecca is here. Rebecca is not here, but we will say congratulations, and that is the motion.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
To approve the granting of high school diploma to Rebecca Algieri.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Yes. Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Crum?
Yes. District updates. our Economic Youth Summit in Shanghai, China.
Yes, I'd like to introduce to you a junior, a very special junior from Anderson High School, Alex Stringfellow. And Alex, along with me, had an opportunity just a few weeks ago to travel to Shanghai, China, to participate in a youth summit. And Alex wants to share just a little bit of that experience with you. So, Alex? Right to that mic.
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Alex Stringfellow. I'm a junior at Anderson High School, and I had the wonderful opportunity this past month to spend a week in China, Shanghai and Beijing. And I got to see all the sights. I mean, the Great Wall, Tiananmen Square, Forbidden City, even the World Trade Tower in Shanghai. But I think the biggest part of that visit was the Economic Youth Summit in Shanghai. It was a 2-day summit put on by EF Tours, and it changed my life. It gave a whole new perspective of how to view the world economy and how we need to stay competitive in order to keep up with it. And going off that, I'd really like to thank the board for what they did in letting me go. It was a great opportunity, and hopefully you can implement with some of what I brought back. So the title of the summit was called Social Responsibility in the New Global Economy. And I didn't know what I was going to expect when I got there. I mean, there's dragons here. It started off incredible. There was so much energy in the room. These were 4 guys dressed up as 2 dragons that danced and paraded all over. I mean, it pumped the room full of energy, and it got off to a great start. And then our first keynote speaker was Adam Davidson and Alex Bloomberg from Planet Money. And they shared with us about, and they wanted us to know how much the global economy has changed. They started in the 1500s where they brought 20 volunteers up on stage and divided them up into different social classes, like your farmers, your industrialists, your artisans, your nobility, and then shifted them around about every 100 years into their different roles as the economy moved on, especially during the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution. And especially since the Industrial Revolutions, it's been changing and evolving much more quickly, all the social classes and economics. And they really wanted to get that into our heads because it's not predictable anymore, the global economy. You're not going to be in the same social class. You're not going to have the same 9-to-5 job your entire life. And we've got to be able to anticipate what comes. We won't be able to predict it, but be ready for what comes our way. And then I attended their workshop, which was A Life of a T-shirt. They had done a video on this about a year ago, so they shared with us what they had found out. And we went all the way from the beginning of a T-shirt, where the cotton comes from, whether it's India, America, or Egypt, and then how it's produced, how it's transported to the garment factories and produced. And they showed us one woman in Bangladesh who made men's T-shirts, and she barely had enough to live on, let alone send back to her family in her village. Whereas in Colombia, there was this woman who made women's T-shirts, and she was able to have a family, live in an apartment, and do things after work. And it just shows the different inequality of the global economy and how that has to be, how we have to combat that to make it more fair for everyone. And they spoke about the garment factory that collapsed in Bangladesh about a year ago. But it's a necessary evil, and we're always going to need some kind of job, something to sustain us. And yes, there are problems like this that come up, but the whole focus of the summit was to come up with a socially responsible way to fight them. So after that, we had the Innovation Village, which was essentially, it was a really cool idea. Before the summit, we got to choose what topic we wanted to do, whether it was public safety, environment, universal rights, or education. I chose public health and safety, and they took us through, there was nobody from my scholarship tour in this group, and they took us through the design process, which was a really fascinating idea. It's essentially 6 steps to coming up with an idea and seeing it through, and I think this would be very good to implement. It's identifying an issue and then empathizing it and coming up with why these people need it, defining exactly what the problem is, and then ideating, coming up with a solution to it, some kind of practical, reasonable way to fix it. Prototyping it, which means actually building or carrying out a model of the solution, and then evolving it, which is testing it, marketing it, and coming up with ways to refine it. And so in our group, in public health and safety, we could come up with whatever we wanted to. And we got part of the way along, realized our project wouldn't really work. We were able to go back through the structured design process, come back to where we wanted to, and then able to rethink everything. And we came up with an idea, Glasses for the Masses, which essentially provides sunglasses to people in poor highland areas where there's a huge risk of getting glaucoma. and other diseases that can be debilitating and destroy their standard of living and make them much less productive. So by selling glasses to rich people in the Western world, we can use those profits to bring it back to them and help them bring themselves out of poverty. And then the second day we had John Huntsman, who, as you may know, he ran for president in 2012, but he was ambassador to China and Singapore and governor of Utah, and he talked about how we can stay competitive, especially working with China in the new global economy. And I really like what he said about technology and education and how a good teacher and good technology is the way to the future. Because technology by itself doesn't really do that much. It can only go so far in helping somebody learn or come up with new ideas. But a good teacher can pair that up and help them come up with new ways that they can reach out and have their own solutions and succeed. And he talked about the strong position of the U.S. I mean, the U.S. has been a superpower for about the last 100 years, but unless we stay competitive, that's going to be lost, whether it's to China or to any other country around the world. And so by staying competitive, we have to be able to start from a young age and teach skills and bring ideas to students across America that they can use as they grow up to stay competitive. And the U.S.-China relationship is going to be one of the most important trading relationships and political relationships of the 21st century, and how we really need to foster that, and so it can be bilateral. China provides their intellect and their knowledge, and the U.S. does the same. And the only way we can do that is by staying competitive. And so after that, we had the second part of the Innovation Village, and I really liked what they came up with, the social businesses idea. I'd never heard of one before. It's either a corporation that's for profit or some kind of charity that only focuses on nonprofit. But this was a for-profit business. It's a whole idea. There's many of these companies. For-profit businesses that gives back and is sustainable to the world around. So one of these was, there was a girl in my group who actually visited an orphanage in Thailand and realized that the monsoon season was going to come and they weren't finished building it yet. So she went back home, raised $10,000 by selling banana bread with her friends, and managed to finish the orphanage in time for the monsoon season. And she's continued doing this, and this is a whole different kind of business, different kind of organization that is the way to the future. And there's an emphasis on big thinking. Instead of thinking small and locally, it's about how what we do can affect the world around us, including the idea for the sunglasses for the poor Highland people. And really, how we can bring this back to here is we need to start from a young age understanding how rapidly the global economy is changing. It's no more a 9-to-5 job. You have worked the same job for your entire life. You need to have the skills and be able to predict what comes so that you can shape yourself to it. And by staying competitive, we can do things like whether it's learning a new language, learning a new computer language, having the business skills to deal with other people, other countries, something that'll give us an edge to everyone else in the world. And to emphasize broader, more global thinking, so instead of keeping things localized and just thinking small, to encourage kids to question the world around them and to come up with big ideas. Like the people in my group, there were 15 of us, each of them brought a valuable thing to the table that I never would have thought unless I'd managed to meet these people. And so I think the kind of trip I went on was a great opportunity for meet new people and to see the rest of the world. And I think the school district should really focus a lot more on doing these trips and showing people the world around them and how they can better themselves in it. Thank you.
Alex, thank you very much. I got to tell you, with that presentation and what you've demonstrated you learned during that thing, I would be pleased to see us do that again. That was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Any questions?
I might just add, Alex, quite frankly, is a great example of one of our students, just one of our students from Anderson High School. I asked Alex, we met after the trip and we got our sea legs back, and I asked him, quite frankly, tell me a little bit about the trip and has it changed you? And I think your response was?
Yes, it changed my life, and just going off the social business is one of them, but I didn't know that this much of the economy exists and how much it's changing. It really changed how I see it.
And he's absolutely correct, and I've shared a little bit with the board, but we are working through curriculum and especially with the bringing the two Mandarin teachers next year to our district, as well as looking at other opportunities where we can provide kids this experience. Alex actually worked with 500 other students from all over the world. And I will say, I was there, I was able to watch him and observe him, and he was a leader of his group. The language wasn't a real barrier. Many of those kids spoke English, of course. But I just want to say, Alex, it was very nice traveling with you and being there with you. So
Thank you.
Well done.
Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
I understand our graduate is here, Mr. Broadwater. Could we maybe do that again?
Yes, we can. The good news, Rebecca, is you have been approved, but I would like to introduce Rebecca Jane Algieri. Rebecca, come on up, and we can recognize you the way we should.
And are Rebecca's parents here? Would you stand? Congratulations.
Jim, before you go on, Dr. Jackson?
Yes.
I think our speaker may still be in the room, but how have you been able to share his experience with students in our school district? Because your enthusiasm, excitement, and his enthusiasm and excitement, I'm sure you've been able to leverage that. Could you just share with us a little bit?
We have not had that opportunity to share with, I know Alex has, because I've talked to several of the kids in my student advisory group that have said that they've spoken with Alex. We've not had that experience where he is, and I'll work with Mr. Broadwater and Mrs. Johnson in regards to trying to get him in front of a group. Like I said, we are working really hard, and I think it's going to come to fruition that as we move forward in the next few years, that we're going to be providing more opportunities, whether it's a summit, whether it's some kind of a language immersion project or something like that, where we can get kids that experience. I mean, it will change their life, just having that opportunity to work with other cultures.
Actually, that statement is what made me ask the question when he said it changed my life. I just want to make it clear. Thank you.
Item 7.2, district updates. Dr. Jackson?
Just a couple quick updates again. I'm going to be traveling tomorrow to Columbus. I just wanted to share this with Betsy Ryan and a team from our middle and high schools of some educators in regards to, we're going to be attending a summit on high school substance abuse. And we do a great deal in this district through SAGA and through other different groups in regards to working with our kids as far as substance abuse. But one of the things that we are learning as districts, especially, and I've had a lot of conversations with my fellow superintendents about some of the drugs that students might have access to now. And we're going to learn a little bit more about, in particular, heroin, how it has made such a large comeback, and what we can do as a district to educate our kids to stay totally away from drugs like that. So that's tomorrow. Also, just, I know you'll repeat this, but I think we need to repeat it more than once this evening, is that the Forest Hills 5K is going to be held on May 10th. It's a Saturday, it's Mother's Day weekend, but it'll be Saturday, May 10th, and I want to make sure we get as many people there as we can. It's a phenomenal community event. If you've not done so, please go. And with that too, I think that's it for now. It's a couple I've already chatted about. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7.3, board policy. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, this is just a first reading. The board has in front of them and in the board agenda policies. Most recently, Mrs. Bissinger and Mr. Smith and myself had our policy meeting as a whole variety of policies in regards to the spring kind of update. And please take a look at those. If you have any questions, please ask either the three of us, and we'll be happy to get back with you.
It looks sort of voluminous, but I think you should know that most of it is has to do with changes in the law that we have to incorporate in our policy. So there weren't any, there was no significant discussion other than understanding.
They were all either mandatory or highly recommended. There were a few of them that we discussed that are not in this first reading that did require a little bit more effort, and so we held them back, and we'll present those at a future meeting.
Thank you. Item 7.4, a proposed contract with Oakmont Holdings. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, before you, I'm going to recommend that you approve this contract with Oakwood Holdings. Last month, we had a presentation regarding the program that we are beginning to pilot called Circle. This is just the business agreement along with that. Circle, as we mentioned last month, was brought to us primarily from the Anderson Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Oakwood Holdings and / Buzz Glue is the agreement that will help us move forward, and it will provide an opportunity for maybe some additional revenue into our district. It's a one-year contract. It's been looked at by Rick, myself, by Tammy Carnahan, and also by our legal. And it has a 60-month out clause if you know, if things aren't quite working out. But I really think it's something.
60 days.
I'm sorry, 60
After
days.
1 year.
Thank you. A 60-day out clause. So thank you so much. So I'm recommending that the board approve the contract with Oakmont Holdings, as shown in your exhibit.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
There's no downside to this, right? The commission, any funding comes from the sale of ad revenue, and so there's no net negative for Forest Hills. It's all upside.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Taffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Commendations and recognitions. We have a state swimming champion, Ms. Ryan.
That's it.
Is this working? No? All right, Item 8.1, we have a commendation for a state swimming champion, Hassler Carroll from Anderson High School. Is Hassler here tonight? Come on up.
Hey, we should get excited about this. This is exciting.
Very excited. And I'm going to read an excerpt that we have had in our website. Sophomore Hassler Carroll became the 17th student in school history to win the 2014 OHSAA State Championship in swimming and diving. Hassler was crowned champion in the 500 freestyle and set 2 school records, one each in the 500 freestyle and 200 in the individual medley. Hassler won also the Eastern Cincinnati Conference sectional back-to-back titles and district champion in the 500 freestyle. Additionally, he was the ECC champion in the 200 freestyle. The credits continue for Carroll, who won the mile at the Southwest Classic. He is the youngest Anderson High School swimmer to ever win at this meet. Congratulations.
We have a motion to commend Hassler.
I move that we commend Hassler for his state championship.
I second.
Mr. Tepper?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Congratulations. Item 8.2, Future Educators Association. We have a state competition winner, and we're asking for Jessica Harm to come up. Anderson High School senior Jessica Harm won the first place at the Future Educators Association state competition for her Moment speech. This qualified her for nationals, which took place this month in Minneapolis, Minnesota. At nationals, she was a runner-up with her FEA speech. And I'm going to, first of all, I'd like, you're prepared to read your speech. Okay. This would take just a couple of minutes, but we'd like Jessica to share what she won this award in. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna give you guys my speech. I was the child who played school all through my elementary years and never wanted to play any role but the teacher. In my mind, at a young age, teachers were omniscient. They had an answer to everything. I was a student who would ask a million questions just to see what kind of answers I could get. As I grew older, I continued to consider a career in education. As I was introduced to FEA during my sophomore year, I knew immediately that I belonged in the Teacher Academy class. I knew that I would be challenged with the portfolio process, grow through placement experiences, as well as get a head start on college. I had no idea that what was waiting for me would be so timeless and life-changing. Through FEA, I had the privilege of working in a special education classroom, serving the needs of students with moderate to severe disabilities. While my heart went out to each of these students, one in particular caught my attention. His name is Hayden. Hayden presented many challenges to teachers as well as peers around him, but the problem that I immediately encountered was that his speech was limited. Hayden could talk, but only in broken sentences. His understanding of how communication worked was only through asking questions, but he would never respond when asked a question himself. While personally working with Hayden, I would encourage him to answer his own questions, building rapport daily over the span of half a school year. At first, I would start off asking him a question and he would laugh it off since he enjoyed being the asker. Even his teachers told me that I should not expect him to answer my questions. To start him off easy, I would ask Hayden what my name was. As usual, he would laugh off the question. After weeks of working with him, one day in particular, it was different. As I walked in, Hayden proceeded to ask me what my name was, and in return, I asked him, "What is my name, Hayden?" He looked at me, cocked his head, and said, "Jessica." I then congratulated him on answering my question, and in reply, I got a full sentence. "Your name is Jessica." The emotional rush through my body at that very moment is unexplainable. The pure joy, contentment, and pride that I felt as I heard him say my name was completely made clear through the beaming, radiant smile that quickly made its way across my face. Not only did Hayden create a sentence using proper grammar, he put my name in it. At that very moment, I knew that I had fallen in love with special education. Not only did Hayden learn from me through this experience, but I learned from him as well. I learned how challenging yet life-changing it can be to work hard on behalf of a student's success. I had the opportunity to encourage him on a daily basis, pushing him to do his very best. I learned that teaching is not just about the curriculum and lesson plans. Teaching is about investing in students' lives. Students like Hayden. I experienced what I always knew to be true of teachers. They can develop a drive in students that no one else can. Most importantly, I learned that I am capable of becoming one of those teachers who I've always looked up to and who I aspire to be. Thank you.
The superintendent is recommending the board commend Jessica Harm for her achievement and distinction, and that a certificate of commendation be presented to her.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Carnahan, in a few years, you want to keep that young lady's name in mind?
Are parents here? Hold on, don't go sneaking out. Are the parents here? We'd also like a round of applause for the parents. Congratulations. Thank you. And it's not just the kids in the district that do wonderful things. We now have the pleasure and something we look forward to every year of recognizing our PTA volunteers. We'll go school by school, is that right? Starting with Anderson High School, Mr. Broadwater?
Good evening. It is my pleasure to introduce, we decided to nominate 3 individuals at Anderson High School simply because Two of them have graduating seniors this year, and we wanted to make sure we gave them the recognition they deserve before they graduate. And talking to them tonight, I believe they are truly graduating and are not coming back, unfortunately. And I'm talking about the kids and the moms. But we want to make sure we give them the recognition they deserve. First individual is Debbie Blanford. Debbie, if you could come up. If you don't know Debbie, Debbie is tireless in her efforts with AfriProm. She makes AfriProm quite the experience. When I took the job last year, I was told, wait till you see AfriProm. It was absolutely correct. It's phenomenal. She is tireless. I know she's going to get the job done. Just today, we came to an agreement because I knew she wanted it and it was good for kids. No matter what you say about Debbie Blanford, she wants to do what's best for the kids. So I'd say thank you and congratulations. Next is Sharon Kitzmiller. Sharon has volunteered in the Media Center when Cheryl Kemper talked to me when I decided I was going to nominate. Cheryl Kemper came to me, and I think she had tears in her eyes when she said that Sharon is going to be graduating with her son Alex, and we are going to miss her in the Media Center. She volunteers, I believe, 2 days a week in there. Anytime we call for textbook distribution, she is there, and she just does a great job. She's one of those individuals who's not looking for recognition, is just looking to help kids, and it's awesome. And we congratulate you. I believe this is your 23rd year, which is unbelievable, so congratulations. The next individual is Pam Moon. And Pam is on the PTO board along with the other members, and I can tell you that this being my second year, my first year last year, sometimes it can be intimidating going to a PTA meeting as the new guy with the moms, and Pam has been so receiving of me and has just been so nice, and I appreciate everything that she has done. She actually, when you talk about volunteering, she started up a choir booster program, which I know it's not the PTO, but it does show that she volunteers for the kids. Her heart is all about doing what's best for the kids, and that's what makes Anderson High School such a great place, is having three individuals like these three fine ladies. So thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Still get to run the ballot.
Congratulations.
All right. Turn around. We'll come to you.
Thank you.
Jim, just real quick. For the ladies who are graduating and leaving, I've made this offer to Debbie and Pam before. But once you take off and realize that there's something missing in your life, and you know what I'm going to say, and you've got all the skill and the experience, the Forest Hills Foundation for Education would love to have your experience and your leadership. Not right away, but once you've graduated, it gets away from you, we're still here.
Turpin High School, Ms. Johnson.
I guess one thing I'd like to say first is, one thing I know we all agree on in Forest Hills School District is without our volunteers, we certainly would never, ever, ever be what we are. So for me, as a building administrator for 13 years with 1,200 teenagers every single day, every hour of the day, without the parents who support all of the programs. With that said, I would like to recognize Tim McLaughlin. Tim's going to come up here happily. As Tim said earlier, he does have had four students in the Forest Hill School District. One graduated last year, one will graduate this year. He will not be graduating like the other mothers. He has two more young people to come. The main thing you will see Tim doing, but it's only one of many, is concessions. I mean, really, who wants to volunteer to run concessions? You have to schedule all the people to work, and if somebody doesn't show up because of their own family commitments or whatever, you have to be there at a moment's notice. And Tim is everywhere all the time, interacting with the students, the adults, parents, community members, has brought so many opportunities through the boosters to our students, in addition to his time just in the concession stand. He, of course, is one of those people that spent the weekend awake with our 1,200 young people so that we could provide, like Anderson does as well, the after-prom event, which was hugely successful. Again, one of the things that is always impressive about our parents is they are not doing it for their students. They're doing it for all of our students. And it never fails to see Tim interacting with some other student, and what our students learn from their parents is what service is to a school system that otherwise they may not learn. So, Tim McLaughlin, again, it's a pleasure to work with you, even though he said when he spoke earlier, he said, "Are you still going to want to recognize me after I speak?" He did say he's very candid and open with us, and I do appreciate the debate on anything. And like everybody else has said, we debate issues all the time. We agree that whatever is best for kids is what we're willing to do. Thank you.
Run the gauntlet. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next up, Naval Middle School, Mr. Vandermeer. If Michelle Redden could come up, please. Michelle was our PTA president this past year, and those of you who have had middle schoolers are aware that when kids are in elementary school, they want their parents everywhere and want them to come into class and show them off. In high school, their parents have become more of their friends, and so they want them with them and doing those wonderful things. In middle school, they do not want their parents anywhere near them. So having volunteers and setting up and running something in middle school can be much more difficult. And as a first-year administrator, to have somebody who was able to orchestrate that and make sure that that happened with all of the different things going on in Naval Middle School was huge for me in my first year. But the biggest thing that I want to recognize Michelle for, and I think she was so instrumental in, was that when we first talked, she said that she wanted to really do something that would make a difference for kids for a long time. And as we talked about it and worked on it, one of the things that came up was with our Alice drill and protecting kids and keeping safe. One of the things that we have to do is let teachers know where the intruder might be throughout the building so teachers can make good decisions. The problem is we could not see where the intruder was in the building because unless they were standing in front of a bathroom or in the cafeteria, we did not have any cameras there. And so Michelle worked with me in doing something that I think will make a difference in safety for a long, long time at Naval Middle School. And that is, she's instrumental in helping our PTA raise over $18,000 to put cameras in all of our hallways to protect all of our kids all of the time. Therefore, doing something that will make a difference in kids' life for a very, very long time. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not trying to trip you.
Thank you.
Air Elementary, Mr. Flanagan.
Hello. I have the honor of recognizing Jenny Gavin as our current and future PTA president and our Air Volunteer of the Year. So Jenny, come on up and actually join me over here. Jenny is an amazing volunteer who's dedicated her time, energy, and life to Forest Hills. She grew up and is a product of the Forest Hills School District. She and her mother volunteer countless hours in our building daily, and she and her husband have two lovely kids that are still in the Forest Hills School District. One is at Air, one is at Nagel, and we're continuing to hope that even once her son graduates from 4th grade and passed into Nagel, that we can keep her, because her insight, energy, and outstanding opportunities that she brings to our building is very much appreciated. In her role at Air Elementary, she has literally filled every role possible. So PTA president, vice president of all of the different ways and means, communications, program services, treasurer, secretary, the list could go on if I continue to list the number of chairs that she has held in all of the different committees. And as a result, her leadership comes with experience. So she not only shares her opinion with us throughout the different meetings and the different activities, but she also shares her experience and takes that experience to open doors for all of our families. Everything she plans, she does with gusto and attention to detail. She rolls up her sleeves and gets knee deep in the work. She also quietly sneaks in and thinks that things go unnoticed when she takes care of kids' needs and takes care of teachers' needs that are just mentioned. Suddenly something will appear. And the biggest phrase that colleagues and peers and friends have shared that Jenny often says is, "Oh, I'll do that, that's easy." And if we could have anything as a mantra for Jenny Gavin, that would certainly be it. So Mrs. Gavin, we truly appreciate all of the time, energy, and effort, all of the work that she does in putting kids first, and all of the work that she's done to bring new ideas, new perspective, and new opportunities for our families to continue to be a part of our PTA. So thank you, Jenny. Very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maddox Elementary, Mr. Troller.
Maddox Elementary, we want to honor two volunteers, Stacy Norton and Amy Hahn. Could you come up, please? As Peggy mentioned, we can educate our children, but we cannot provide the type of education that we provide without our parent volunteers. They're the first thing that I mention when I give a tour. They're the first thing I mention when I talk to parents. They help us to be able to do what we do. These two people are no exception to the other volunteers that are here tonight in that they put the children first. Stacy's been with us for 12 years. Amy's been with us for 9 years. They've held all kinds of different positions in PTA, from powerful leadership positions like vice president and committee chairs to serving refreshments to working at the carnival, all types of things. And that's the cool part about it, is it doesn't matter whether it's a part where they're visible and they need to be out in front and maybe do a little arm twisting to get people to volunteer, or to be the kind of behind the scenes person where they're not as visible and it's not about them, it's about the kids. And that's the common theme, and that's what makes our schools great. So, Amy and Stacy.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Mercer Elementary.
Good evening. To say, as the new principal at Mercer, I had one of those moments of panic since this is my first time through, and when Mr. Broadwater got up and was recognizing his PTA volunteer, when I saw him with certificates, I leaned over to one of my principal colleagues and said, "Did you bring certificates?" And he said, "No worries, they're up front." I have the distinct pleasure of introducing and recognizing our PTA president, Debbie Shaw. So Debbie, if you would please come forward. And Debbie has been a volunteer and a parent at Mercer for the past 7 years, starting when her 6th grade son, Connor, was in kindergarten. She is the proud parent of 3 of our Mercer Eagles, Delaney, who's finishing up her 1st year at Mercer in kindergarten, also Brennan, who is a 4th grader in our building, and Connor, who is getting ready to leave us and transition to NAGLE at the end of this year. Debbie is also the wife of Patrick, who has been a dedicated volunteer in our building as well throughout all these years. Debbie has been actively involved in PTA, serving in various roles that have made Mercer the amazing place that it is today. Throughout her many years of volunteering, she has always advocated for programs that bring out the best in kids, and her focus has always been to impact as many kids as possible. As a teacher by training, Debbie chose to put her career on hold so that she could do exactly what she has done these past 7 years, put her time and energy into making her children's school one of the best elementary schools around. She has put her heart and her soul into Mercer. We are grateful for the past 7 years of Debbie's love of Mercer and thankful that we have at least 6 more years together, not letting you off the hook. So it is an honor and privilege to recognize Debbie Shaw. Congratulations.
This one making sure I'm smiling. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sorry. Sherwood Elementary, Mr. Hamilton.
All right, good evening, and I'd like to recognize Brandy Eulenbrock as Sherwood's Volunteer of the Year. Before I begin, I know I do this every year, but I love to see a lot of the other volunteers because there's so many Sherwood connections. Sometimes I have PTA presidents that have been here and parents, and it's neat to see that, I have kids in the district to see that they're going to be able to run into people like this along the way. So it's great to see what the parents are doing in our community, so thank you. So I would like to recognize Brandy Eulenbrock tonight. Brandy has been, well, she's accompanied tonight. At first I need to recognize her son Luke is with her tonight, so I'm sure anytime you want to shout out to the crowd, just go ahead, Luke. But Brandy has been a part of Sherwood since Luke has been there. So over that 4-year period, Brandy has served in a lot of different roles within the Sherwood community. She's done all kinds of stuff. She's been Rune Rep, she's been a VIE, she's been hospitality chair, she has chaired the Breakfast with Santa, she's been recording secretary, and has been executive VP as well. So she's done a lot of unique things within the building. She's also in the building. She's very unassuming. You wouldn't know she's in there. She's in and out and stuff gets done. But what I wanted to recognize her for tonight is an event that she took on this year, which was our For Love of Learning event, which was a parent night for our Sherwood parents. We hadn't done anything like this in the past, and so Brandy came to me last year, I think, and said, hey, can we have a parent night? And I said, I'll think about it. And then she came back later and said, have you thought about it? I said, let me think about it some more. So finally she said, quit thinking about it and let's do it. And so we finally did it. And it turned out to be a huge success. We actually, just for our parents, it was on Valentine's Day. And I don't know if you remember Valentine's Day, but we had the huge snowstorm that came. So, and with that being said, it was such a well-organized event. We had maybe a handful of parents that didn't show up. We had everybody there. It was a wonderful evening, and it was a great fundraiser for our building. But even if the event didn't make a dime, it was really awesome to see what it did for the climate and the culture of our building and how it brought our parent community together to provide an opportunity for them to get to know each other. So even if it didn't make a dime, it was well worth it just because of what it did for our community. So with that being said, she's a super volunteer, and I know she said she's going to do this even when she leaves Sherwood, right? So I appreciate that she's committing to that today, right? So thank you, Brandy, for all your work.
Summit Elementary, Ms. Selstead.
Heidi, if you want to come on up. Summit Elementary is very proud to announce Heidi Blacksage as our Volunteer of the Year. Heidi has always supported our PTA with donations and volunteer time in the classroom when she was a working parent. Then a few years ago, when she made the decision to stay at home with her children, she knew that she wanted to be actively involved with her children's experiences both in and out of school. She volunteered more in the classrooms and in the media center. She became a room parent for both of her children. She has also helped behind the scenes on many different PTA events. I can remember a couple of years ago, we started Ames Web progress monitoring in the classrooms where we were doing screenings with students, and it was really unique. We had the faculty and the places to take students to do this quick testing. But I came to Heidi and I said, we kind of have a problem. We need kids to get from one place to the other. They have to be staying in the hallway. Can you help us? She's like, sure, I'll get people there. And sure enough, she mobilized the troops. We had parents in, including Heidi coming in. And that's just one of the many examples of we've approached her and she's always willing to find a solution for us. Even though it wasn't her original intent, when approached to take on a leadership role in PTA, she became Vice President of Programs and is now currently our President of the PTA. And we may have done a little arm twisting, but she was really excited to take on that role. What is most impressive about Heidi is that she'll do whatever it takes to help our students. She is extremely dedicated, hardworking, and always does it with a smile on her face. She currently has two daughters, Abby and Avery. I see Avery over there. And that attend Summit Elementary. Her daughter Abby, who is in the 6th grade this year, says, it's great to have my mom as a role model for me. She teaches me to be a good helper. I've personally worked with Heidi during her time at Summit and can't thank her enough for her dedication to our students and our school. She is a joy to work with, and Summit is a better place because of her. Thank you, Heidi.
And next is Wilson Elementary, Mr. Buck.
Wilson Elementary would like to recognize two ladies tonight, Stephanie Grandy and Michelle Easton. Stephanie Grandy is our current PTA president. This year, her big word has been change. Next year, she says that her words of wisdom will be boundaries and expectation, and I wish her well with that since she's working with me. This year, she's been instrumental on making business connections and through restaurant nights. She's gotten our Wilson community going to different businesses and restaurants, and in turn, the businesses and restaurants have donated 10 to 25% back to our PTA. She's been instrumental in that, as well as being a big advocate for children. When I pulled her son into the office today with the big wide eyes that he had as he walked into my office, I said, "Jack, your mom's getting an award tonight. What do you think about that? How do you like seeing your mom at school?" Jack said that he loves seeing his mom around school, especially around lunchtime, but even more at the end of the day so he doesn't have to ride the bus and he can ride home with her. Michelle Easton is a very humble advocate of children, and she loves the spotlight. You can always see Michelle at Wilson. She is always working on a fundraising activity as our Vice President of Means and Ways, and to Michelle, it's either go big or go home. She's always working with her students and making sure that the funds are there for children's services. This year she coordinated, and last year, the Sparks activities for Wilson. We have a Wilson Way Day, and in the afternoon we have over 40 Spark leaders that come in and do job and education to hopefully spark the children's interest. Coordinating this takes hours of work, and she does it with ease. When I called her son Kyle down to the office today, what he said that he really likes best about his mom working at school is that he knows things before the other kids do. Wilson Elementary would not be the same without these two ladies, and we want to commend their hard work and dedication to our Wildcats. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
She is.
Yeah, I risked it.
We're now at the public comments section. I have 11 cards up here. I hope there's the same ones from before. There's no new cards.
Oh, I would like to make a motion of commendation for our PTA volunteers.
Oh, goodness.
And our,
Second that.
Mr. Tepfer?
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Thank you.
no problem.
No new cards, right? Board discussion. We talked now from our earlier discussion.
I just want to circle back on two things that were said tonight, if I can. And they're, it came from the public comments, and they're both sort of objective observations that I thought stood out to me from all the comments. One was, I think it was Mr. Prosser said, that we have to treat what we're doing as a business. And I think what he said was administrators can't fly the plane and fix the engine at the same time. And he suggested, and he's not the first person to suggest it, that we maybe have a third party help us. And that's no offense to Dallas or Joe or anybody, but that, you know, maybe we should think about, as we go on to the next step in this process, maybe doing an RFQ to get, you know, an independent third party to help us through this process. I think it will go a long way toward unifying the community too. Just my 2 cents. The other comment that was made by, I think his name was Dan Goddard. Is there Mr. Dan Goddard? Goodard. Thank you. Mr. Goodard said, and we talked about this a little bit at our last session, that it's all well and good to get construction costs, but we also need to be mindful of operational costs. So those need to be analyzed and discussed as well. So that's it. Thank you.
And as long as we're discussing, I'd like to, there was one comment made about board members going out in the community and whether that was a good thing or a not so good thing. I personally, and I think I can speak on behalf of all the board members, and everyone here, obviously, we have the PTA volunteers of the year, understand what it's like. I think we heard it a couple times that nobody in this room is here just for their kid. You can be a great parent and just take care of your kid. The PTA volunteers here have made a wonderful contribution to their schools. We're here to try and make a wonderful contribution to the whole district. So I expect and hope that we are all available to go out to, I know I spoke to 2 PTAs on their invitation for any of us to go. I know Julie came to a Wilson PTA as well, is if this process is a big process, but we're ultimately the people are going to make the decision that you all have to decide, or that we all have to decide. So I hope and expect that all of us are more than willing to go out, and if there's any time that you want one, I mean, we're limited by law, or you can't have more than 2, and you probably don't want more than 2 of us at one time anyway, but to come and give, not even opinions, it was more information or where we're going, we're more than happy to do that. And I think that's something that we should do.
Yeah, and also like the comment, I think it's our job to go out and do this. This is a representative democracy. We represent the public, and we need to get as much input as we possibly can. And like I said, I believe that's our job. Another comment I was going to make is on operational costs. Julie, I agree. And I am looking forward to, and we've had this discussion now, that we need to get some apples to apples numbers, because I've seen some numbers in the last couple of weeks that weren't even close to reality that people have been throwing around for operational savings and that kind of thing. So I absolutely agree. Not tonight, but at the appropriate meeting, which I think is maybe the next workshop, we can drive that to the ground.
Well, that's actually one thing that we ought to discuss. I don't want to have too much discussion on the facility issues when our work session's over and those people that really cared about it. Not that you all don't care, but I don't want to have that discussion too much in their absence, but we all ought to do, and I don't think tonight. But Susan, if you'd follow up with us, check our calendars, and we get a couple more work sessions scheduled.
Just one more thing. I think Tony had one thing he wanted to say.
Sorry.
Yeah, I had 2 takeaways there as well. One of them being what Mr. Prosser said. I think there's plenty of information out there from all our past committees, all of our past surveys, all the past work that has been done. And if anything, what I would like the public to know is that the fact that we don't have a plan yet is not a function of us not having a plan. It's a function of us having had 4 meetings and agreeing to do it in public. So what you've seen, we don't have meetings outside of these meetings. We don't get together and try to put everything together. What we do is what people have seen. So I would say I would probably lean less towards a third party and more towards more meetings, even if they're 7 a.m. meetings a couple times a week or whatever. I think we've beat the information train to death. I think it's out there. It's up to us to pull it together and come up with that plan that we can get people behind and on the same page.
All right, any other discussion? All right, Susan, if you'd get with us to get some more meetings scheduled. I understand items 11.1 through 15.2 will be done as consent agenda. So moving on to 11.1, foreign exchange student, Ms. Ryan.
We'll do that.
11.1, Turpin High School is requesting approval for Ricardo Rodriguez from Mexico as a foreign exchange student for the 2014-2015 school year. All information according to board policy has been reviewed for this student. He is being sponsored by International Cultural Exchange Services. For item 11.2, this is an after-the-fact field trip, overnight trip for 4 students who qualified since our last board meeting. They traveled to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this is our Teaching Professions Academy. This is the same event that Jessica Harm attended that we provided the commendation to earlier this evening. They traveled April 9th through 13th to compete in the Future Educator Association National Competition. Cost and additional information is including Great Oaks did provide this transportation or funding for this transportation. Item 11.3, another overnight field trip from Anderson High School. They are requesting permission for 19 students and 3 chaperones from the marketing or DECA group to travel to Atlanta, Georgia next Friday, May 2nd through the 7th to compete in the DECA International Competition. Cost and additional information related to that trip is included in this item, and transportation is also being provided by Great Oaks.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Mr. Sikovich?
Thank you. The first item is regarding the revisions to the current 2013-14 school year calendar based on the provisions of House Bill 416 regarding calamity days and the contingency plan for blizzard bags. There are 4 attachments that you have at your seat regarding the specifics for the makeup days, regarding the wave days and the blizzard bag days, as well as the makeup day that will be required for Summit Elementary School for the extra day that they had missed earlier in the school year. Item 11.5 is the district calendar for next year, 2014-15 school year. We previously have presented the dates of the calendar throughout the school year, and at this time we are presenting on the left-hand side of your calendar the conference days, the high school exams, and the various grading periods and interim reports. So there are no changes to the main part of the calendar. Do want to note that the December 18th, December exams is not a change, but will be also discussed under the Human Resource Report, where exams are going to be held before the winter holiday, as opposed to at the end of the semester, which will be in January. And then finally, the 11.6 is a residency waiver. It's a motion to approve the residency waiver for Alexis Elam, a senior at Turpin High School. Her parents moved out of the district, and for her to complete her education and graduate with their class at Turpin High School. Thank you.
Thank you. 12.1, Ms. Adams? Hi.
Item 12.1 is the Zaner Bloser handwriting program, that's K-3. The Forest Hills Elementary English Language Arts course of study recommends that Zaner Bloser handwriting be adopted for grades K-3. In this, we will, for K-1, utilize the manuscript program. In grade 2, the cursive program will be utilized to review manuscript and then move on to teaching cursive. And then additionally, the grade 3 will reinforce this, and we'll have the mastery of cursive. And for our current students, we'll have a transition plan into these new writing plans. This will be available in the curriculum department until May 19th, the board meeting for review, and we will ask for your formal approval of this handwriting program at this time. Item 12.2 is the English Language Arts course of study. It was brought to you last month for review, and now the superintendent recommends that the board approve the English Language course of study as written.
Thank you. Human Resources Report, Ms. Carnahan.
Good evening. I apologize for my voice, first of all. Item 13.1, the Human Resources Report. Item A, we have retirement. These are our certified. We have teachers here, Karen Gremban, Nola Jacobs, Barb Reljak, and Deb Rudolph. 86 years of experience with these 4 teachers. Item B is also retirement of our operational folks. We have Helen Clark, Joyce Grimmett, Charlie Harmon, William Skip Murray, and Shirley Stroll. 102 years collectively with this group. Certainly we will ask that you accept this with regret. We continue on. Item C would be resignations. Item D covers items E through I. Item E would be appointments. You see certified classified staff. Item F, continued appointments. Item G, special services appointments. Again, this is work beyond the contract, additional support. You see several Camp Kerr hires there, or additional work. Continuing on, I'm on page 5. We have after-school intervention, continued with the extra work. Item H, appointment and resignation. We have one volunteer coach for baseball at Anderson, Kevin Snyder. And item I, substitute personnel. Item J, Mr. Zinkovich mentioned just a moment ago. This is a memorandum of understanding with our FHTA. And I will say items 1, 2, 3 were really cleanup items. We had 2 separate contracts going when we created this MOU. And as a result of that, there were some numbering issues. And so we wanted to make sure we got that cleaned up. Item 4 on this MOU would be the agreement of FHTA to move the high school workday to after exams as opposed to at the end of the semester. The superintendent recommends that the HR report be presented or approved as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Carnahan. Item 14.1, a contract with Tyler Technologies. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, I'm bringing an amendment to the contract that was brought to the board several months ago. Tyler Technologies provides our routing software. At the time that we executed the contract, we tried through all of our best efforts to use existing software for the field trip scheduling and just found that we weren't able to properly integrate it. So we're coming back with an amendment to the existing contract for that facet. So the Treasurer would recommend the Board approve the amendment to the agreement with Tyler Technologies for the purchase, maintenance, support, posting of field trip routing software effective tomorrow, April 29th. The next item is 14.2. It's a change order for Air Elementary. When we opened up bids a couple of months ago and brought them to the board, this is for $0, but we specifically called out for some equipment in one of the alternate bids that was awarded. We have been able to upgrade, if you will, the type of device we're using at no cost that has changed from what was called out for in the alternate. So the Treasurer recommends the Board approve the change order submitted by Cincinnati Electrical Solutions, LLC, in the amount of $0. The last is 14.3, which is the bid opening for the gym structural modifications at Turpin High School. We opened bids on Friday, April 18th for the structural renovations at Turpin High School and the gym. The complete bid tabulation recommendation is shown in the attachment. I will note that in all my years walking up here, we've never had one that was as close as $19 between the winner and second place. The Treasurer recommends the Board award the contract to Kramer and Feldman as presented.
Thank you. Treasurer's report, Mr. Tapfer.
First item would be 15.1. This is something we've talked about a couple of times, although we've had an ongoing business advisory committee for over a couple of years now. Ohio Revised Code 331382 required that to be formalized into a board committee, and that is the item presented today. And I guess a question to ask is if there would be a board representative that would want to be a part of that. Not required. Right now I can still chair that, but if there'd like to be a board member that would either like to chair it, or would like to become more involved in that, I'll leave that open. But that's something that we talk about when we bring these to the board in our organizational meeting in January. So I recommend the board approve the Business Advisory Committee as a board committee. Item 15.2 is the Treasurer's report. We see this time of year heavy donations, and that's what makes it go this time of year with after prom and scholarships, and our PTAs delivering as they always do. Most notably here, Maddox and Wilson with technology equipment, the foundation with Destination Imagination donations. Lots of things on that list, very important. Item B is our statement of board accounts. All of our accounts are in good shape. We have one that we're waiting on some federal funding. which qualifies for a negative balance. Item C, our general fund receipts. We're waiting for a TIF payment, but our general fund revenues are in line. D&E really is a challenge that we've been facing the last few months as I've reported to the board the last few weeks. We started with very tight budgets, and this year we had some unknowns. We had open enrollment occur in a couple of the surrounding districts, and we weren't really sure what was going to happen with the John Peterson Scholarship Program. Those two items have taken about $900,000 of state foundation funding away from us. Kind of starts through a lot of that starts through the October count process, and really it doesn't hit us until January, February. So that's when we formalized what the impact was going to be. So you'll see our spending at a higher rate now. Once again, we have no control over any of those two items, but they do impact this year and ongoing. We had not obviously anticipated that, and obviously if that would grow into next year and beyond, that would be even a deeper concern as we try to balance out when our operating needs are going to be a major question for us. So items D and E kind of speak to our expenditure pattern. Item F is our monthly bank reconciliations. Item G, purchase of investments. Item H, and this goes hand in hand with D and E. We are asking the board to approve an increase into our amendments, or general fund appropriations, excuse me, of $600,000. We believe, we hope that that's the only increase we'll have to request between now and the end of June, but we're watching that very carefully depending on whatever else happens that is unforeseen. And obviously the next step really is to see what that impact is moving forward. And obviously in light of all the discussions we're having, this is a factor in all of that as well, and how we structure the next few years of everything from having our general funds support permanent improvement kinds of projects to just the day-to-day programmatic things that we need. So it is to get a couple of emails between board meetings for me is important, so that's why I didn't want to wait until today to share those with you. And item I is asking the board to approve board service fund expenses, and it is recommended the board approve this report. And to summarize, we're really asking the board to approve items 11.1 through 15.2 as presented by our whole team.
I move that we approve items 11.1 through 15.2.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Tepp?
I've got a question. The memorandum of understanding, that moved from 185 to 186 days. Is that significant on the accumulative sick days?
No, but it needed to line up, so it was just a claim, it was just a correction.
Second point is the board advisory committee. I actually recommended that 2 or 3 times during the course of the history of the board, and after looking at other financial advisory committees at other school districts or business advisory committee meetings, unless you've got a reason to not want to chair it, it would seem to me that it would be appropriate for you to chair that going forward, not unless some board member has a burning desire to do it.
Well, even if we appoint a board member, it doesn't mean that Rick can't continue to chair it.
Right. Well, you asked about chair, and I wanted to comment on that.
And also anybody, as now, can attend, and obviously it'll be more a formal, agenda, kind of minutes and so forth. So you'll be aware of those much more than you are now. So more than just a recap, you'll be in front of that.
I've attended a number of them, and I'm impressed with the commitment of the members of your committee. Third thing, I just wanted to point out your comments about the outflow from the various state mandated programs. That's significant. What did you say it was this past for this year? 900,000.
Well, half of that was open enrollment. The other half was scholarship programs. Neither one, which, like I said, we have no control over, and don't really know until it happens what those numbers are. We had some what we thought were reasonable projections, but it was an unknown mandate that happens. And what made this one unique, and Betsy could speak to it more, but we don't even know the population of kids until we get paperwork. Oh, I'm sorry. The John Peterson Scholarship, we don't really know, what those kids are until we get paperwork that, that our funding is moving. I really, it's a moving target right now, but that's this year's funding.
Any further discussion? Mr. Tepfer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Reports. Business Advisory Committee, Mr. Tepfer?
We have not had a meeting since the last meeting, so no updates there.
Thank you. Forest Hills Foundation for Education had their meeting on April 9th. Most significantly is the Forest Hills 5K, which Dr. Jackson has already referenced. Just over a week away. It'll be Saturday, May 10th. Teachers in the Forest Hills School District can use, I guess, some of the insurance money for that. Is that right? Wellness money. So sign up for it, teachers. Not just the teachers, any district employees, right?
Correct.
Yes, so please do. We have a new team leader for the Raise and Manage Funds group, Bill Lyon. Thank you very much. The last ACT prep session was on March 22nd. They're also looking for, on the Destination Imagination, looking for sponsors. So if you're interested in sponsorship for the Destination Imagination, please contact Dee Stone. There's an alumni golf outing on July 19th at Legendary Run. There'll be a shotgun start. If you're interested, contact the foundation, presumably Dee, or is that going to be Rick Anderson? Who? Contact Dee Stone for the, if you're interested in participating in the golf outing. Alumni newsletters for both Anderson and Turpin went out just recently. Hopefully people are getting those. Dee Stone has also arranged for the Forest Hills Foundation of Education to get the Kroger Rewards card. So if you've got a Kroger, you can actually link that up to the foundation, and some of your Kroger dollars will go to the foundation, so please do that. The foundation's in the process of reviewing their strategic plan, and that's the report. Legislative liaison. Randy?
Number of things going on. However, right now the legislators are out on recess until after the primary. The most important thing going on right now is the mid-biennium budget review, or MBR package. The House voted on it, passed it over to the Senate, but nothing will happen, like I said, until after the primary. Two key points there. There's a measure that would convert the existing post-secondary options for high school students to a new College Credit Plus program, which sounds good, except they may be putting in a floor for, in other words, a student would have to spend a certain amount to get the college credit. And Dallas, I don't think we have got something that's as high as theirs. Our students aren't spending that much money at this point. Is that correct?
No, they are not. But part of that legislation also would require the district to pay part of that as well.
Right, I know. And so OSBA has lobbied against the sections of this. And I just want consensus from my colleagues here to also lobby against that, because we've got a good program in place right now. This legislation is going to be a roadblock to us. I'd like to think we're a little bit on the cutting edge as far as some of the programs that Dallas has been spearheading, but actually it's with the University of Cincinnati. But again, before I go lobby, I want to make sure I've got consensus and alignment.
Is this as simple as you're asking us if we're in agreement that we can keep the programs we're already running and not have our parents pay more and the district pay more for it? Is that right?
Well, actually what I'm asking is to lobby against the measures that they are proposing, which will cost our students, parents, and district more money than they're spending now.
Yeah, that sounds easy.
Okay. Second thing in this bill is an issue involving delays in expanding career tech education to grades 7th and 8th, developing and implementing a career advisory policy, and creating student success plans as an alternate path to graduation. Now that's really the other big one that will impact education out of that entire bill. That's my report. I've got it in writing, and if you want, I can follow up later offline.
Thank you. Policy Committee, Julie?
We met and we presented all the policies we presented tonight, and I don't think we have anything else to say, do we, my compatriot?
We met on April 15th, somewhat lengthy meeting to go through all that, but I think we already reported most of this was basically not optional.
Yeah, and just so you all are refreshed, we meet with a member from Neola, and he's awesome. He's a former superintendent, I believe, of New Richmond.
Yes.
Right? He's a pretty cool guy. And Susan is with us as well. She's on the team. So, and all the policies that have specific subject matter are always looked at by the appropriate person. Like if there's something to do with money, Rick looks at it. If it's something with special ed, Betsy looks at it. So it's a well-vetted process. And Randy and I do read every single word. So
And the Neola people
we like
are backed up by a number of education expert attorneys, and so that's where this is coming from. But it still just blows my mind, all the required policies that come out of, whether it's state or federal or both, that the district has to abide by. And if we don't update these policies in a certain time, we're out of compliance, and it could cause major issues for the school district.
which makes us wonder how we ever lived without him in the first place.
Yep.
We're good now.
Thank you. Saga report. Tony, was that you?
Yeah. I attended the Saga meeting, and the main topic of discussion for most of the time was Riverbend concerts, particularly country concerts. So any of you with Anderson Township high schoolers, if they go to the country concerts, it's pretty crazy down there. Not a whole lot of policing of underage drinking at all, and pretty much if they don't mouth off to the police while they're puking, they get admonished to their parents. And so just something for you to know. It's a rampant issue, something that they're trying to work on the best they possibly can. And so I know I just said that on television, but it's good for everybody to hear.
Thank you. I don't believe we need an executive session. Is that correct?
Correct.
Our next regularly scheduled meeting is May 19th, 2014. We may have another work session before that date, and that will be announced through public notice. 18.2, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Thank you all for coming.
Yep, thanks for staying.
Wow.